American comic, I'm lost, I'm surrounded by superheroes with father issues. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 101, The Kind Boy Azu. Are you okay, Clark? As they walked to the classroom, Zu asked him in confusion. Clark suddenly stood up and pushed Whitney's lackey away. Although he felt relieved, this was completely inconsistent with Clark's usual character. I'm fine, better than ever. Clark shrugged his shoulders, raised his finger, and looked at the ruby ring on it. I feel relaxed all over now, and I can do whatever I want. Zu narrowed his eyes. But you just pushed that guy away, Clark. Yes, he is a guy who deserves to be dealt with, isn't he? I wanted to do that a long time ago. Zu felt that Clark in front of him was a little strange, although it's good to say, this is not your style. Did something happen that I didn't notice, Clark? No, nothing happened, but I have to say, I like this feeling, Clark said happily. As the two were talking, Lana came over to greet them. Hey, Clark, are you okay? Lana asked him with concern. I'm fine. I just lost control of my emotions. You know, Lana, they always enjoy bullying others. I have to stand up to them. Clark's tone was no longer as nervous as before when facing Lana. Are you going to the cheerleading team this afternoon? I will participate in the football team training. When the time comes, I hope your eyes can stay on me for a while. Lana was stunned for 2 seconds, then took a deep breath and looked at Zu with puzzlement. The Clark she knew would never talk like this. Zu shook his head at her, indicating that he didn't know what was going on. Yes, I will go to the cheerleading team then. See you then. Lana smiled at Clark awkwardly, then left with a confused expression on her face. Kent Farm. Jonathan was wiping a Harley motorcycle. This second-hand motorcycle was given to him by Peter. You seem to like this gift from Peter very much, Martha said standing next to him. Yes, it's cool, isn't it? Jonathan put the rag in the basin, stood up and looked at the motorcycle again. I've always wanted a motorcycle like this. Martha leaned against the pillar next to her. When you fix the motorcycle, I want to be the first to ride it out for a ride, of course, but I'd rather you sit on the back seat. Jonathan stood up with a smile on his face, looked at his watch, and asked his wife, where's Clark? He usually goes home at this time. As soon as he finished speaking, Clark appeared in front of the two of them like a flash of lightning. The wind brought by the super speed blew the hair of the two people up. Are you looking for me? Clark asked the two of them with his school bag on his back. Looking at Clark, who didn't care about using his superpowers, Jonathan was stunned for a moment and said, yes, aren't you going to fix the garage door with me? Clark put down the school bag on his back and said casually, no problem, it only takes me 2 seconds to fix it. Jonathan heard Clark say this and looked at his wife. After coughing, Jonathan said, Clark, we need to talk about you being on the football team. I don't want to talk about it right now. Clark shook his head and refused, and raised his right hand to observe the ring on his finger. Jonathan frowned when he saw the ring on Clark's hand. I thought we agreed, Clark, you can't buy this ring. Clark put his hand down with a disapproving expression. I thought we both agreed that I would make the decision myself. That's because I think you will make the right decision, Clark, and this ring is worth a lot of money. Before Jonathan finished speaking, Clark raised his voice and said angrily, I don't want to worry about money anymore. Being confronted by Clark in a tough attitude, Jonathan's stunned expression froze on his face. Seeing that the atmosphere at the scene was a little solemn, Martha said to Clark, Clark, go wash your hands and get ready for dinner. Clark ignored his mother and said in a stiff tone, I'm not hungry, and I have to go to the fields to work. After that, without waiting for the two to react, he activated his super speed and disappeared in front of the couple like a gust of wind. After a while, Jonathan asked his wife in confusion, what happened just now? Martha shrugged her shoulders and said, I think our Superman son has entered a rebellious period. Jonathan exhaled, his eyes filled with worry. His rebellious period may be different from others. This is very dangerous. Martha smiled and said nothing, but the worry in her eyes was no less than Jonathan's. Martha, he made a bad decision, but that was his decision. Jonathan, Martha helped pick up Clark's school bag. I remember a teenager who once spent $500 to buy a motorcycle. Listening to his wife's teasing, Jonathan smiled bitterly. Now I am 100% sure that you are the informer and told Peter about my past embarrassment. When we were chatting together, Peter always liked to inquire about your embarrassment. Martha came over and held her husband's hand. Jonathan, preaching will only make things more awkward. Jonathan nodded, feeling the warmth from his wife's hand, and gave her a forced smile. A gift from me, at night, at Patrick's farm. Peter looked at the ruby ring in his hand and asked Azu in surprise. This kid would prepare a gift for himself? Yes, Dad, this is the prom ring sold at Smallville School, Azu said with a little pride. I bought it with my pocket money, a Diddy-style ring. Nice, I like it very much. Peter looked at the ruby on the ring and felt that it looked familiar. Touching the texture of the ruby ring, he felt that it was similar to the green kryptonite in his collection. John, where did your school customize this ruby? He looked up and asked Azu with a thoughtful look in his mind. It seems to be made of a meteorite. I don't know, Dad. Do you think it's fake? It may not be fake, but it should be very special. Peter shook his head, put down the ring and said to Azu, anyway, Dad likes this gift very much. After all, it was Azu's heartfelt gift, and he wanted to praise his child's enthusiasm. As long as Dad likes it, Azu glanced at Star-Lord with a little pride. Unexpectedly, Star-Lord's eyes turned and he suddenly had an idea. Dad, I also have a gift for you. Star-Lord came up and said. What are you going to give me? Peter ruffled Star-Lord's hair. Wait, Dad. Star-Lord trotted upstairs and came down quickly with a gift box wrapped in ribbons in his hand. This is it. Star-Lord pushed the gift box in front of Peter. Oh, I'm looking forward to it. Peter reached out and took the gift box to open it, but was stopped by Star-Lord immediately. No, Dad, you have to open it yourself when no one is around. Star-Lord said that it would be meaningful to open the gift in this way. Okay, I'll put it away first. Peter nodded, then I'll open it myself when no one is around. Azu, who was standing next to him, saw that Star-Lord was so good at flattering that the tableware in his hand was deformed. Sure enough, this little fat guy is his biggest enemy. After dinner, Star-Lord happily went upstairs listening to songs. The Ramones Swinging to the Beach came from the Walkman. While listening to the song, he sang along with the rhythm in it. Although he didn't sing very well, he was energetic and full of joy. Hey, Star-Lord, Azu called out to Star-Lord, who looked like an idiot in his eyes. John, seeing Azu standing in front of him, Star-Lord turned off his Walkman. What's the matter? Nothing, I just want to give you a suggestion. Don't play such stupid songs at night. So you hate music? No, I just don't want to see you acting like a fool and making embarrassing moves for others. You are my father's son and my brother. I don't want our whole family to look like fools because of you. Star-Lord took a deep breath and said in a calm tone, you know what? John, I don't care about your opinion at all, really. Azu walked up unhappily, stared at Star-Lord and said viciously, the reason why I didn't beat you up now is because of your identity. Do you know what happened to Dal? If you keep trying to be smart in front of your father in the future, I will make you like him. Facing Azu's threat, Star-Lord didn't seem to be afraid at all. Although he knew that his big brother had extraordinary superpowers. Ahem. Star-Lord coughed lightly and took out a mobile phone from his pocket. The phone was still on at this time. Star-Lord pointed the phone at Azu. I'm talking to Dad now. I think he should have heard what you said. After hearing such unethical words from Star-Lord, Azu was stunned for a moment, and soon he was panicked. But he adjusted his mood as quickly as possible, and the expression on his face changed from fierce to a harmless smile. Hey, haha, Dad, I'm joking with Star-Lord. Star-Lord held up the phone and walked back. Okay, I have to go. Azu's acting skills were still online. He shouted to Star-Lord in a tone of blame and pampering, haha. Hey, Star-Lord, you shouldn't be rehearsing lines with me while you are talking to Dad. That? Dad, we are rehearsing lines for a campus TV series. When Star-Lord closed the door with a bang, Azu's disguised expression immediately disappeared without a trace. The forced smile on his face quickly turned into a big mushroom. After he put his hands on his hips and exhaled a breath, he stared at the closed door and gritted his teeth. This shameless guy actually used this trick to deal with me. Huh? After closing the door, Star-Lord let out a long breath. In fact, he didn't dial the call connection with Peter just now. The reason why he dared to use this trick so confidently was that he was sure that even if Azu doubted him, he would not dare to gamble. After all, Dad would really deal with him. Okay, the music continues. Proudly pressing the button of the music player, Star-Lord sang his favorite song Swinging to the Beach again. Chapter 102 Dad, will I never be abducted by aliens? Time soon came to 10 o'clock in the evening. Good night. Peter glanced at Star-Lord, who was wearing blue children's pajamas, and prepared to turn off the lights and leave the room. Dad, Star-Lord, who was lying on the bed, suddenly called him. What's wrong? Peter walked back, sat in front of the bed and touched his hair. Dad, is Miss Kelly my mother? After a moment of silence, Star-Lord suddenly asked Peter. Peter was stunned for a moment, looking at his puzzled eyes. Why do you ask that? I often dream, Dad. Star-Lord blinked and wrapped the quilt. Dream? Peter frowned slightly when he heard Star-Lord say that he dreamed. Azu also often dreams, and what he dreams about are things in the Black Robe world in his previous life. Now Star-Lord also said that he often dreams. Could it be that these babies who fell from the sky will contact their previous lives through dreams in the future? What did you dream about, Star-Lord? He was a little curious about what Star-Lord dreamed about. I was abducted by aliens, Star-Lord said with a bit of depression. I ran out of the house, it was very dark at night, and then I saw a flash of light, just above my head. An alien spaceship sucked me in, and then I was kidnapped, left the Earth, never to see my family again, never to come back. I heard my mother calling me, but I was getting farther and farther away from her. We will never see each other again. At this point, Star-Lord looked at him with tears in his eyes. Dad, will I be taken away by aliens? Then I will never see you again. I'm afraid. I'm afraid these things will happen. Listening to Star-Lord's words, Peter was stunned for a moment, organized his words and comforted him. No, these things will never happen. It's just a dream. It's just a dream. You fell asleep. A long journey, a long night, low haze, incredible illusion. Star-Lord, this is the magic of dreams. It's just a story derived from our hearts, a part of our life journey, and has nothing to do with reality. Dad, dreams really have nothing to do with reality. Yes, it has nothing to do with reality. Hearing Peter's affirmative words, Star-Lord breathed a sigh of relief. That means I will never be abducted by aliens and will never leave the Earth. Right, Peter nodded. Dad swears to you that you will never be abducted by aliens, and even if that happens, Dad will rescue you, even if it is outside the Milky Way. Then it's a deal. Star-Lord stretched out his hand and made a pinky promise with Peter. It's a deal. Peter made a pinky promise with him. After coaxing Star-Lord to sleep, Peter went into his room and unwrapped the package. The gift from Star-Lord caught his eyes, a handmade cassette. Picking up the simple cassette with different songs spliced together, he looked up at the dark night outside the window. It seems Star-Lord's mind is much more delicate than he looks on the surface. The next day, Kent Farm. After Jonathan got up, he found that his motorcycle was missing. Martha, Jonathan, who thought his motorcycle was stolen, called his wife over. Our motorcycle is gone. Martha rushed over after hearing the noise, and saw that the place where the motorcycle was originally placed was empty. She looked around. Impossible. We didn't hear any sound at night, unless someone could carry the motorcycle away directly. Jonathan frowned when he heard this. Carry it away directly? A motorcycle. Just as the two were puzzled, they suddenly heard the roar of a motorcycle stepping on the throttle. Hearing the familiar throttle sound, the couple turned around in astonishment and saw Clark riding a motorcycle, wearing a pair of red sunglasses. Clark. Jonathan looked at the showy Clark in surprise, and his anger immediately came up. You didn't say hello to us, and you rode a motorcycle alone. Sorry, Dad, I just experienced a feeling of freedom, Clark said indifferently. Free? You have your own mission. You can't be free, Clark. Jonathan suppressed his anger. You went out last night, didn't you? Yes, I went out to experience the feeling of flying. It was the most unforgettable time I have ever had. You're too much, Clark. Jonathan looked at him with a frown. Do you know how worried this will make your mother and me? Then you will never worry about it. I will leave here forever, Clark said as he walked into the house. After a moment, he came over with his luggage and put it on the motorcycle. Clark. Seeing her son's behavior, Martha immediately stopped him. Are you going to leave the farm? Otherwise I will stay here and continue farming, letting you constantly doubt me and stop what I want to do. At this point, Clark emphasized, you have never really trusted me. Clark took off his sunglasses, and his tone became relaxed again and said to the two of them, the Godfather is different. He has always trusted me and encouraged me, and he is also willing to see me become a person who breaks free from the shackles. He is like my real father. I will leave here forever, and live with the Godfather. Hearing Clark's rebellious words, Jonathan's anger instantly filled his heart. Clark, I hope you can listen to what you are saying now. He took a step closer to Clark and looked at the ring on his hand. You look a little bit wrong. It must be that red ring. Clark was packing his luggage, and heard Jonathan's words, raised his head and faced him. Are you still mad at me for buying that ring? It's so sad, Dad, Mom, you're always fussing over these insignificant little things. Clark, you don't know what you're doing, Jonathan said as he tried to reach out and take off the ring from Clark's hand. But Clark, who was quick-eyed and quick-handed, dodged the other's hand that was grabbing him. No, you don't want to touch me. Seeing Clark's increasingly excessive actions, Martha next to him shouted at him, Clark, stop, look at what you are doing. Jonathan saw his son's arrogant and domineering appearance, and his stubborn temper came up. He frowned and walked quickly to Clark again, and said in a firm tone, Clark, give me the ring. What if I say no? Clark didn't give in at all. For a moment, the atmosphere between father and son became tense. Clark, you are not sober now. This is your father. You must calm down, Martha advised Clark. Maybe it's the ruby ring in your hand that made you lose your mind and become no longer like yourself. Jonathan continued Martha's words. Yes, something has been wrong since you put on this ring, Clark. It may change your personality. You mean? Clark looked at the ruby ring on his finger hesitantly. Is it because of it that I do these things and say these words? Yes, so you must take it off. Take it off. Unexpectedly, Clark's expression suddenly changed, and he smiled. You are wrong. I should have bought it earlier. He put the luggage on the motorcycle and fixed it. If you want to stay in this crappy place for the rest of your life, then continue to stay. This is your problem. I'm tired of this poor life. Clark's words completely angered Jonathan. Hey, Clark, listen. Jonathan raised his voice. We are not a wealthy family, but we have never owed you anything. I can make money on my own. Clark confronted Jonathan. I have superpowers. I can be a football player, a TV and sports star. You are the ones who forced me to suppress myself. After that, Clark turned around and prepared to ride away on the motorcycle. No, Jonathan grabbed the handlebars and said in an excited tone, we are protecting you. We don't want anyone to take you away. Protect me. Clark sneered. Ridiculous remarks. It's better to say that you are using me. I am just a tool used by you to run the farm. But now, everything will change. Boom. Clark showed his father an evil and crazy smile, and then twisted the throttle. Boom. The motorcycle rushed out like a raging bull. The smoke and mud sprayed by the motorcycle swept the dumbfounded Jonathan and his wife. At the same time, Padrick Farm. Peter went out for something, and now only Zoo and Star-Lord were on the farm. You didn't record yesterday, did you, Zoo, who probably knew that he was fooled last night, asked Star-Lord angrily. I don't know, maybe I did, maybe I didn't, I forgot. Star-Lord naturally wouldn't tell the other party the truth. He also wanted to use the recording as a handle to threaten Zoo. If the other party really wanted to beat him up, he would threaten to give the recording to his father, and then he believed that Zoo would definitely not mess around. He was unwilling to hand over something that was very important to him. One day, I will send you to the Kavachi tribe, Zoo said unwillingly. After returning to the room in a depressed mood, he took a few deep breaths and suddenly glanced at the cows in the cowshed. Thinking that Peter was not at home, he suddenly felt a little restless. 5 minutes later, Zoo walked to a cow with an iron poke, looked around, and after confirming that Star-Lord was still in the room and no one noticed him, he squatted down to milk the cow. Sizzle, sizzle, fresh milk was squeezed into the iron bucket. As Zoo smelled the fishy milk, a wonderful and indescribable feeling rose in his heart. Although he knew he shouldn't do this, he was addicted to this pure natural milk. After looking around again with a guilty conscience, he picked up the iron bucket and prepared to taste the freshly squeezed milk. Unexpectedly, as soon as he took a sip, he heard the roar of a motorcycle. Then, in his stunned eyes, Clark, wearing red sunglasses, rode a motorcycle towards the farm. Squeak. Stopping the motorcycle, Clark propped up the stand, got off the bike, took off his sunglasses, and greeted Zoo, who still had a trace of milk stain on the corner of his mouth. Hey, John, Clark. Zoo didn't bother to hide the iron bucket, and asked in surprise, have you become a biker gang? Or are you going to play Mad Max? Chapter 103 Star-Lord beats Clark. Of course not a biker gang, John, I just think it's cooler this way. Clark unloaded the luggage from the motorcycle, smiled and said to Zoo, also, I will live here from now on. and I won't go back. Azu looked at Clark in surprise, who came with a luggage and had a different temperament. The iron bucket in his hand fell to the ground with surprise, and the milk soaked the ground. He asked in an unbelievable tone, "You said you will live here from now on?" "Yes, this will be my home from now on. I will live with you, John. I have a brand new life." Clark came over, patted Azu on the shoulder and said, "Why do you want to live with us? You have your own home, Clark." Azu didn't quite understand why Clark in front of him seemed a little different from before. "Because I separated from them. We parted ways from now on. I live with the Godfather, and I will be the Godfather's son from now on," Clark said as a matter of course. "No, you're not, Clark," Azu said somewhat unhappily. "Your biological father has always been Jonathan Kent, and your last name is Kent, not Patrick. Whatever you think, this will be my eternal home in the future, and I will live with my Godfather." Regardless of Azu's unhappy expression, he walked directly into the room with his luggage. After meeting Star-Lord, who came out of the room, he waved and greeted him. "Hi, Star-Lord, I'll take you out for a walk later." Star-Lord, with a confused face, looked at Clark, whose temperament had completely changed, and was stunned. Is this the Clark he knew? At noon, Azu was eating with Star-Lord in the living room. Because Peter was out, the two could only heat the food in the refrigerator in the microwave and take it out to eat. After taking a bite of bread, Azu asked Star-Lord, "Have you seen Clark? He seems to be busy over there in the barn." As soon as the voice fell, a noisy and harsh music came from the barn. The two looked at each other and hurried to the barn. As a result, as soon as I arrived at the barn, I was startled by the loud music. The barn was set up as an entertainment venue. There were not only speakers playing music, but also TVs and game consoles placed in the middle. Various strange and bizarre gadgets, such as lightning balls and colorful lights, were also placed inside. Clark himself was sitting in front of the TV, wearing headphones and playing games. "Clark, what are you doing?" Zu asked in confusion. "Where did you get these things?" "Eddie's low-price store in Metropolis. They are open 24 hours a day." Clark pressed the pause button of the game. "I think I have to have these very cool things like everyone else. The Godfather said that I should not be locked up in shackles. Now I can do whatever I want." Zu looked at Clark, who was a little bit embarrassed, and said, "Wait, where did you get the money to buy these things?" "I borrowed money from the Godfather," Clark said nonchalantly. "I know where the Godfather's credit card is, so I used it to swipe it." "What?" Hearing that Clark swiped his father's credit card, Zu immediately clenched his fists. Star-Lord next to him also looked at him with unkind eyes. "What's wrong?" "Don't worry, you don't have to pay right away," Clark signaled to the two not to worry. "How dare you steal Dad's credit card?" A faint red light appeared in Zu's eyes. He could no longer suppress his anger. "It's not stealing, I just took it and used it." Clark took off his sunglasses and corrected Zu's statement. "Besides, the Godfather will definitely not blame me." "Not blaming you." Zu was so angry that he laughed. Of course, Clark pressed the remote control and turned off the speaker. As if he didn't see Zu's angry expression, he said to the two, "Because I have always been the Godfather's son, we have the same talent." As he said that, he raised his right hand and looked at the ring on his finger. "The Godfather taught me not to be bound by shackles. Do you know that feeling? The feeling of being connected to each other's minds." Staring at the S on the ring, his expression changed a little. "It's like the Godfather has entered my heart. He knows what I want and what kind of person I want to be." As he resisted the urge to shoot him out with his laser eyes. "You're talking nonsense. It's all lies, Clark. You're telling lies to escape your guilt." Clark looked at Azu with pity. "You're the one living in lies, Azu. Don't you realize? The Godfather has always treated me differently. He has never treated me as an outsider. By the way, let me tell you another secret. You know, I've always been very tight-lipped, but this time, I'm going to make an exception." He took 2 steps forward, put on his sunglasses, and looked at Azu provocatively. "The secret is, my biological parents are not Jonathan and Martha. I was adopted. I heard it with my own ears." Clark shrugged his shoulders at the two of them and said in a light tone, "Maybe they adopted me from the Godfather, so I am your eldest, and you, John, and Star-Lord, you may not even be the real second, and there is also the third." However, before he finished speaking, he was punched and flew away. With a bang, Clark's body fell heavily on the barn floor, instantly smashing his newly bought speakers to pieces. Looking at Clark lying on the ground with an expression that made him look even more like he deserved a beating, Zu looked at his fist in astonishment. Before he could make a move, Clark flew away. It was not until he noticed the strangeness of Star-Lord next to him that he realized it. At this time, Star-Lord clenched his fist, with a white light flashing in his eyes, and stared at Clark on the ground angrily. "Shut up." At the same time, Metropolis, bar. Peter sat at the bar and asked the bartender for a drink. This bar bought by Bruce Wayne and given to him has a good environment and atmosphere. It is clean, spacious and bright, with polished Swedish pergo floors and shiny display cabinets filled with t-shirts, bumper stickers and lighters with a studio logo. "This wine tastes good," Martian Hunter, who hadn't seen him for a long time, thanked Peter while tasting the wine. "Thank you for treating me to drink. I haven't tasted this kind of flavor for a long time. I can taste the flavor of an old friend I haven't seen for a long time." Peter glanced at the wine in his glass. "To be honest, I envy those of you who can taste what's in the wine. You can always taste something: chocolate, pipe tobacco, figs, grass clippings, or some sweat from a 9-year-old Cuban boy who has been floating on the sea for 2 weeks on a raft made of banana crates." Peter put the glass on the counter. "Unfortunately, I can only taste the flavor of the grapes of wrath." After making a few jokes to the other party, Peter asked him, "What are you busy with recently? You don't even have time to go back to take care of the children? Clark even asked me about you. He misses you very much." "I miss them too," Martian Hunter sighed and said, "but recently, I'm busy with some very important things." "Saving the world?" Peter asked curiously. "So much so that you are indispensable?" "Almost. I've noticed some dangerous people. I have to keep an eye on their movements. So I can't go back recently. Say sorry to John and Clark for me." "Oh, and your new son Star-Lord?" He looked at Peter with suspicion. "Honestly, are you really not an alien? At first it was Azu, and now Star-Lord suddenly appeared." He has begun to suspect that Peter is an alien from outer space like himself. "Yes, I am from an alien planet. My purpose is to cause disputes." Peter picked up the grapes, "and I have 20 Primarchs. They are all created by me to help me complete my cause and make mankind great again, and in the future, we will also carry out a great galactic expedition, Galactic Crusade." The Martian Manhunter seemed to really believe Peter's nonsense and looked at him in surprise. "Why do we have to carry out a great galactic expedition?" Peter tasted the wine and looked at the Martian Manhunter, who seemed to be serious. "You are interested in Warhammer." After a cough, he continued to say to the Martian Hunter, "In order to bring mankind back to the Golden Age, the destiny of mankind is to rule the galaxy." The Martian Hunter was stunned by Peter's words. For a moment, he didn't know whether Peter was joking with him or was really preparing for a galactic expedition. When he thought of Peter's strength, and then thought of this guy's 2 sons, if Clark was added, if he wanted, he might really be able to unify the galaxy. No. Would the entire galaxy be plunged into war? His home on Mars was destroyed by the war, and many planets will suffer a similar fate. Thinking of this, he immediately looked at Peter uneasily. "Don't think about it, I was just joking just now. This time I want to ask you for help." As he said, Peter handed a red gem ring to the Martian Hunter. "Do you know this kind of redstone?" "This is." Seeing the ruby ring in Peter's hand, the Martian Hunter immediately widened his eyes. "This is red kryptonite." "Red kryptonite?" Peter looked at this magical ring in surprise. "Yes, it's incredible that I see it here." Martian Manhunter looked at the ring in shock. "It's a variant of kryptonite. Originally, red kryptonite was green kryptonite. After kryptonite passes through a red cloud layer in the universe, it will become red kryptonite. Maybe the red cloud changed the half-life period of kryptonite, so the function of red kryptonite is also different from the original." Peter frowned and looked at the red kryptonite. "What effect will it have on Kryptonians?" "It's random. No 2 pieces of red kryptonite have the same effect on Kryptonians, and the effect of red kryptonite on Kryptonians is time-limited. After the time limit, the effect will disappear. How long? I don't know. I've only heard about it, and I haven't seen it. This is the first time I've seen real red kryptonite." Martian Manhunter said to him. "Temperament changes, or skin becomes transparent, or some other messy changes. These are all rumors. I once heard a Martian say that he got red kryptonite." "Really?" Peter put down his glass and pondered. "According to Azu, Clark also bought a red kryptonite ring. I wonder what changes will happen to him. Please give me a monthly ticket." Dear readers, Sanchin has been wanting a monthly ticket for a long time. Chapter 104, Star-Lord and Azu are beaten up. On the other side, at Padrick's farm. "No, Star-Lord, My mouth tells me that it doesn't want to close. Clark, who had fallen to the ground, stood up and spoke casually. I will fry you into French fries. Clark, seeing that the other party still had this attitude after being punched by him, Star-Lord gritted his teeth. The white light in his eyes became more and more intense, and gradually a white flame arc swayed in the corners of his eyes. Clark stood up and took a deep breath. Without any sign, he grabbed the speaker on the table next to him and smashed it at Star-Lord. With a clang, Star-Lord, who was unable to react in time, was smashed directly into the wall of the barn. The huge force broke the speaker into pieces, splashing everywhere. You shouldn't mess with me, Star-Lord. Bang! Clark's figure flashed and landed heavily beside Star-Lord, who was knocked to the ground. Because I'm the only one who doesn't discriminate against you. As he spoke, Clark looked down at Star-Lord lying on the ground. Sorry, I broke your Walkman. Maybe next time I can buy you a new one, but I don't want to listen to those stupid songs anymore. He picked up the broken Walkman, shook his head with some regret, and threw it aside. Seeing Clark throwing away his Walkman like throwing away garbage, Star-Lord endured the pain from his body, stood up suddenly and punched Clark. Facing Star-Lord's attack, Clark easily caught it with one hand. Crackling, Clark's strength in his hand gradually increased, and he said, "You are not like the Godfather at all. At least when I was 3 years old, I had more strength than you, although I was not as fat as you." The severe pain from his hand made Star-Lord scream out. Seeing this, Clark snorted and casually swung his right hand that had grabbed Star-Lord's fist, and the latter instantly shot out like a bullet. With a bang, Star-Lord's body smashed a big hole in the wall of the barn, like a piece of tofu. After dealing with Star-Lord, Clark looked at Azu next to him. What? Do you want to fight me too, John? Before Clark could finish his provocative words, he was shot away by Azu's zero-frame heat vision. Azu's eyes were shining with a dazzling red light, dyeing the entire barn red, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly because of his intense anger. With a bang, Azu rushed to Clark, who had not yet landed, like a cannonball, and hugged his waist. Moving at high speed, the two rushed forward along the ground, opened a second big hole in the barn, and combed a middle part on the fertile land along the way for dozens of meters. Under the effect of Azu's flying ability, the two maintained a high-speed movement. Bang! Azu grabbed Clark's collar and punched him in the face angrily. How dare you use my father's credit card? While roaring, Azu threw another punch, and the red light in his eyes became redder. How dare you say I'm not my father's son? Another fist hit Clark's side face fiercely, making a bang sound. The laser in Azu's eyes burst out instantly and shot fiercely on Clark's forehead. Feeling the burning pain on his forehead like a burning flame, Clark used all his strength to open Azu's hand that was holding his collar. Although he successfully escaped from control, he was thrown into the living room like a ball under the powerful kinetic energy because he couldn't fly. The living room was swaying like a water ripple, the furniture was instantly shattered, and the pungent smoke and dust quickly spread. Azu continued to attack Clark in the living room. Clark, lying on the ground, put his hands on his chest and easily resisted Azu's punch after punch. After putting on the red kryptonite ring, Clark felt that his strength had increased a lot. Not only was his mental perception much stronger than before, but his physical reaction, speed, and strength were all stronger than he had ever experienced before. Feeling the increasing strength of his body, Clark broke free of his arms, pushed Azu away and stood up quickly. Then he rushed over at lightning speed, grabbed Azu's clothes, and threw him to the ground with a bang. The shiny floor was instantly shattered into pieces, and smoke and dust spread everywhere. Azu, who fell to the ground, felt a piercing pain in his back. Don't you understand? This is my power after I'm free from the shackles, John. Without being bound by anything, I'm free, and my power will be completely liberated. Clark mistakenly thought that the power amplified by the red kryptonite was the power after the shackles were released. The Godfather taught me to release the shackles, and I will be his pride. No, you're not. Zeus staggered to his feet, holding his shoulder. Clark, you, the ambitious guy, have finally been exposed. You, a traitor, you want everything, traitor? I'm not a traitor, I'm just being myself. Instead, you, John, don't hide your little thoughts. You will never be the master of the farm, Clark said to him in a slapping tone. You live in fear, you are always afraid of losing something, you will regard everyone around you as your opponent, you hate everyone except yourself. Star-Lord, are the people you hate, because you can never stand the idea of your father being disappointed in you. You want your father's recognition and love, But the more you care about something, the more you will lose, because no one likes a child who never grows up. John, you are a child who will never grow up. Shut the damn mouth. I'm not. Clark continued to make his venomous remarks. You are, John, you who are begging for recognition, begging for love, begging for your father, you who are crying, you are a child who will never grow up. Zizzy. Azu shot a heat beam at Clark, forcing him to retreat while suddenly moving over to attack. Clark held Azu's fist, and the two wrestled with each other. Unlike the last time when Azu had the upper hand, this time it was Clark who had the advantage in strength, and Azu was gradually pressed down. Clark continued to taunt, I can help the Godfather, I can be the kind of person the Godfather expects me to be. Azu gritted his teeth and looked at Clark, saying hatefully, I am the eldest son of this family, you will always be an outsider, and Dad will always love me. Then congratulations, I mean, this kind of insistence on being loved by Dad is actually a bit pathetic. But, looking at Azu who seemed to be about to explode in anger in the next second, Clark shrugged and made a mocking gesture. Yeah, being mocked by Clark, Azu's face immediately turned red, and the laser in his eyes suddenly shut out. Clark, who was already prepared, immediately dodged to the side. Zizzy, the heat beam hit the TV and instantly exploded the TV. With a deafening boom sound, Zu rushed over with his back teeth clenched and punched fiercely. Clark blocked Zu's fist with his left arm, then freed his right hand and used his faster speed to attack Zu's heart. Zu took a step back and punched again. The two entangled together, and Clark's super speed under the blessing of red kryptonite was brought into play, hitting Zu's chest with one punch. Enduring the pain, Zu hit Clark's shoulder with his elbow, but was hit by the opponent and flew backwards. Bang! Zu was hit in the chest and flew sideways. After smashing a barn wall, his body continued to charge forward. Clark took advantage of the victory and caught up with Zu, grabbed his clothes, held his powerful legs together, and kicked Zu's abdomen hard, blasting him further away. Bang! It hit the ground like a meteorite, forming a huge crater. Gravel and dirt were scattered into the sky, as if a mud and stone rainstorm had fallen. Clark landed near Azu on the ground and looked down at him. I told you a long time ago, Azu, I am now a person who has broken free from the shackles. I can become the most powerful and wealthy person like Mongo in The Godfather. John, you can't stop me, never. Azu panted slightly and looked up at Clark's arrogant face. Dad will not let you go. I won't let you succeed. I will say it was you who caused it. Shameless Clark said that he would put the crime of destroying the farm on Azu's head. My ambition is not to be on such a small farm. My goal is higher than yours. Clark glanced at the farm and suddenly felt a burst of accumulated heat burning in his eyes. Rubbing his eyes, he opened his uncomfortable eyes. His vision was blood red, as if everything in front of him was burning. He groaned, and the burning heat burst out of his eyes the next second. In Azu's shocked eyes, Clark's eyes suddenly shot out heat. The heat with rolling heat hit the crops outside the farm. Flames were born in his heat, and then rolled towards the crops. Azu looked at the burning farm, and his eyes turned blood red in an instant. Azu, who was completely out of control and lost his mind by Clark, flew towards Clark with a whoosh, grabbed his clothes and flew into the sky. Bang! The sound of sonic boom shook the surrounding air, and Azu grabbed Clark and flew into the sky at a high speed. Buzz! 10,000 meters above the sky, a passenger plane was passing through the town of Smallville. The high-speed plane left a contrail in the sky. The next second, the contrail was directly dispersed by Azu, who was holding Clark. The angry Azu grabbed Clark's head and hit the plane. At the same time, inside the plane, the boy near the window was bored and looking at the clouds outside the window, passing the time for this boring journey. Unexpectedly, he suddenly saw a figure, whoosh, flashing outside the plane. He was startled and quickly grabbed his father's clothes. Dad, look, there are people outside. The father, who was absent-mindedly flipping through the newspaper, glanced outside and saw a scene that stunned him. In his shut sight, Azu was pressing Clark's head and crashing into the plane. Although he couldn't see clearly whether it was a human, even if it was not a human, once it hit, the plane would be destroyed and everyone on board would die. Oh my God. No. Get out of here, he made a panicked voice and pulled his son to retreat. The passengers who saw this scene screamed in fear, and the plane immediately became a mess. Chapter 105. The farm was hit by a plane? The pilot of the passenger plane soon discovered a UFO approaching at a high speed. Damn. What is that? The captain looked at the warning issued by the aircraft radar with sweat on his forehead. Switch to manual control, damn it. The experienced captain immediately operated a plane at the fastest speed. At this time, Clark, who was caught by Zhu and rushed to the plane, grabbed Zhu's clothes and tried to break free from his control. After a struggle, the speed that was originally enough to crash through the plane dropped rapidly. Bang! Clark's back hit the engine of the aircraft engine, and the solid aerospace material metal was instantly deformed by the impact. Clark groaned in pain. The next second, before he could react, Zhu grabbed his clothes and threw him to the ground. Inside the plane, the boy who first saw the two looked at Zhu in shock, who was hanging in the air with a red glow in his eyes. At the same time, at Patrick's farm, Star-Lord, who was knocked unconscious by Clark, stood up from the ground and saw the messy scene in front of him and the burning farm crops in the distance. Seeing the crops burned, Star-Lord immediately took action in a hurry to put out the fire. He originally wanted to use water to put out the crops on the farm, but as he watched the fire grow bigger and bigger, he soon realized that it was impossible for him to put out the fire. What should I do? What should I do? With sweat on his forehead, he tried desperately to find a solution. No, I can't let my father's farm be destroyed by fire. I promised that I would take my father and the farm to travel to the stars in the future. I can't let it happen. Just when he was almost desperate, the stars on the bracelet given by Kelly in his hand suddenly glowed. The bracelet emitting white light, combined with the power of the gods in Star-Lord's body, made his body change rapidly. Feeling the heat radiating from his body, he looked down at his arm. In his astonished eyes, the stars on the bracelet suddenly shone brightly. Surrounded by the white light, Star-Lord's body was deformed, and in his unbelievable eyes, it turned into a white giant wolf. Star-Lord, who was emitting a fiery white light, looked at his torn clothes and then at the bracelet on his clothes. He suddenly understood why he turned into a wolf. The Awachi tribe where Aunt Kelly was also known as the Fantasy Beast tribe. Dad said that the people in Aunt Kelly's tribe had the ability to transform into animals. Could it be that because Aunt Kelly gave him the bracelet, he could also transform? Sure enough, he had a close relationship with Aunt Kelly. At this time, Star-Lord began to doubt whether what Zhu said was true. Could he really be Aunt Kelly's child? Looking at the growing fire, feeling the rolling burning heat, and the crackling sound of explosions in the air, Star-Lord didn't care about his random thoughts and rushed to the burning crops at the fastest speed. Boom! With a dexterous movement that didn't match his body size, he jumped over the flames and rushed into the middle of the flames. After transforming into a giant wolf, he felt much lighter. The energy accumulated in his body was directly spit out by him opening his mouth. Bang! Pure white energy exploded on the ground instantly, and the airflow and shock wave generated were surging in all directions. The burning flames were instantly extinguished by this strong airflow. Huh? He took a deep breath and looked at the crops whose flames were extinguished, and couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Although the crops that were knocked down by the airflow and shock wave were a bit horrible, he finally put out the flames. Dad will definitely praise him when he comes back. Just as he was slightly proud of himself, he suddenly heard a boom sound from a distance. He looked up in confusion, and saw a scene where a plane was whizzing over his head. Then, in his stunned eyes, the plane landed heavily in the farmland, and the belly of the plane slid forward along the ground. The soil along the way was turned up and splashed around. The crops and the farmland were all destroyed by the plane and the impact of the airflow. The deafening sound spread all around, and the plane rushed forward with unabated momentum, destroying a piece of intact farmland. Star-Lord couldn't help but whimper in pain as he watched the giant in front of him destroy all of his father's crops. Bang! 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 The plane made an emergency landing in the farmland, and under the control of the captain, it kept sliding forward, and the passengers in the cabin screamed in fear. Fortunately, the god of death did not favor this flight, and the plane finally stopped safely under the control of the captain. When the plane finally stopped, Star-Lord looked at the steaming plane in the distance in shock. Catcha! The cabin door of the plane was opened, and the frightened passengers slid down the slide. At the Metropolitan Bar, Peter didn't know that the three idiots in his family not only demolished the house, but also built a plane to smash the farm. At this time, he was still chatting with the Martian hunter at the bar. Peter picked up the tequila, broke the bottle cap, and drank it all in one gulp. It was refreshing and hearty, with a slightly sour taste, and it went down in one gulp. He asked the Martian manhunter, "Does red kryptonite have any other abilities?" "Generally speaking, it is a multifunctional type. It may also make Kryptonians evil and enhance their strength. This thing has some restraint on Kryptonians, so it is best not to let Clark come into contact with it. Seeing Peter's strange expression, the Martian Manhunter asked tentatively, "Are you trying to say that Clark has come into contact with this red kryptonite? It should be like this. The graduation prom rings sold by Smallville School use this meteorite." The Martian Manhunter opened his mouth in astonishment. "You mean, that school sells this meteorite wholesale to students?" "Yes, but this red meteorite is extremely rare. I have never seen it in Smallville before. Maybe the school got it from somewhere. Even if this meteorite is rare, there are many green kryptonites in the town. I wonder how Clark grew up safely since he was a child. He can survive healthily. It should be God's blessing." The Martian Manhunter was shocked by Clark's vitality. "Aren't you worried about Clark?" Seeing that Peter didn't seem to be too worried about the side effects of Clark's contact with red kryptonite, the Martian Manhunter asked curiously. "Even if Clark turns evil, he just wants to make money, or put the kitten on the branch so that it can't get down." Peter said that he knew Clark very well. Or he quarreled with his parents and joined the football team according to his own preferences. "You seem to know him very well." "Of course, I almost watched him grow up." "Then you don't know him completely." Martian Hunter shook his head, put down his glass, and asked the bartender to pour him another glass. "Clark's biggest concern lies in his recognition of his identity," Martian Manhunter said slowly. "Jonathan has always believed that Clark's coming to Earth is meaningful. He never hoped that Clark would really hide his uniqueness for a lifetime, but the fact is that he has been suppressing Clark. Clark has never been an ordinary human being. He basically has not lived an ordinary and normal life. He knows that he is different, but he doesn't know what the meaning is." Looking at Peter, who was lost in thought, Martian Manhunter continued, "He doesn't have a clear self-identity. He is a person who is searching. He doesn't even know what he is looking for, but you give him meaning. You make him realize that you may be the same kind of people, and he finds meaning in you." After a pause, he said to Peter, "Do you remember that time when you held him and trained his super jumping ability?" "God," he laughed so happily at that time. He is not only happy for having unique abilities, but he has finally found meaning. He is a person who is different but knows what his meaning is. He regards you as his goal, and is free, powerful, and happy because of you." Peter was silent for a few seconds, then drank the wine in the glass in one gulp. "Yes, actually, I know that Clark is a lonely person. He is lonelier than Zoo, like a ghost that is difficult to integrate into." Martian Manhunter nodded. "Yes, he is connected to the world through you. This feeling may be a broad love independent of humans, but sometimes, this feeling can also be the greatest indifference." Peter was listening to Martian Manhunter's words when his cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and found that it was Jonathan calling him. After talking to the other party for a few words, Peter hung up the phone with a serious expression. "What's wrong?" Martian Manhunter asked him. "Clark had a fight with his parents, and rode his parents' motorcycle to my house, saying that he would live with me in the future." Martian Manhunter shrugged his shoulders. "See, I was right. I'll call the farm." Peter was about to call the farm when the news on the TV in the bar suddenly attracted his attention. CBS reported urgently that at 14:12, a passenger plane that took off from Sacramento, California, made an emergency landing in Smallville, Kansas. A surveillance video captured the thrilling scene of the plane's belly touching the ground, sliding across the fields, and finally stopping safely. The host reported the sudden aviation accident. According to reports, earlier that afternoon, the plane was heading towards the metropolis. When it was flying at an altitude of about 12,200 meters, the plane's engine malfunctioned and it urgently sought a safe landing point. The fire department and the police department have rushed to the scene. The National Transportation Safety Board of the United States said that it will investigate the incident soon. Peter was stunned when he looked at the picture on TV. Wasn't the place where the plane landed on his farm? And the farm looked like it had been destroyed by a bomb. Not only was the scene in a mess, but the barn and the living room were also damaged. Peter's hand holding the glass of wine slightly exerted force, and his face was instantly covered with clouds. Chapter 106. If the child is disobedient, just beat him. Bang! Clark, who was thrown down by Azu with the earth throw, hit the ground heavily. With a loud bang, Clark smashed a deep pit in the ground. The ground shook, and the soil was thrown into the air. Clark, lying at the bottom of the pit, gasped and looked up at the sky. Although it was not fatal, it really hurt him. Taking a deep breath, he climbed out of the pit, and as soon as he came up, he saw Jonathan standing not far away. Jonathan was holding a sledgehammer in his hand and looking at him seriously. "Clark, enough, Dad, what are you going to do? I won't let you hurt anyone." Clark looked at his father with amusement. "So now, you still want to order me?" he said as he walked towards Jonathan. Jonathan, holding the hammer, swallowed his saliva and took a step back nervously. Clark stopped and looked at him in surprise. "Are you scared?" Shaking his head, he smiled at Jonathan. "If you think about it seriously, you and your mother have always been afraid of me." "No," Jonathan said firmly, "your mother and I love you very much. I don't want to do this, but I have no choice. I have to stop you, otherwise you will hurt more people." "Injured? I'm just doing something free and easy. I didn't hurt anyone." Clark took a step forward and looked at the sledgehammer in Jonathan's hand. "Dad, you don't want to do that, right?" "I will." Jonathan was about to hit Clark's hand, trying to directly break the red kryptonite ring on Clark's finger. Bang! Clark, who has super speed, just pushed forward and pushed Jonathan out. Jonathan slid along the ground and the hammer in his hand fell to the ground. At this time, Azu and Star-Lord had also arrived. Ignoring the two, Clark walked straight towards Jonathan. "Dad, I'm disappointed. I thought you wouldn't do anything to me." Jonathan covered his chest and panted and said to him, "You don't know what you are doing, Clark." I know it very well now." Clark took a deep breath and looked at Jonathan on the ground. "I like this feeling. I can do whatever I want without your orders. No one can stop me." "Really? Clark?" A familiar voice suddenly sounded, and Clark's body froze. After a while, Clark turned around and forced a smile at Peter, who suddenly appeared behind him. "Godfather." Peter glanced at Azu and Star-Lord, who didn't dare to look at him, and cast his eyes on Clark with a fake smile. The problems of these two naughty children can be solved later. The most important thing at present is to deal with Clark. "What do you want to do to your father?" Peter frowned and asked Clark. After this child turned evil, could he dare to do something to Jonathan? "It's nothing, Godfather. I just want to tell my father that I am no longer the person I used to be. No matter how you change, you are still Clark Kent." Peter stretched out his hand to the other party. "Clark, take off the ring now." Clark looked at Peter with a serious expression, then looked at the ring in his hand, and said hesitantly, "Godfather, it is very important to me. I don't want to do that." Peter took a step closer to him. "It's just a ring and it won't change anything in your life. It can help me break free from the shackles and become a free man. I can do whatever I want." "Godfather, you said that the people on that planet are bound by Mongo, so they hate heroes, and humans will be trapped in shackles anyway. So, with this ring, I can get rid of the shackles forever and be free." Peter looked at him and shook his head. "You have forgotten the second half of the very important sentence, which is that I hope that even if you are bound by shackles, you will become a person of hope, giving hope to yourself and others." "Now you, Clark, are not a person who gives hope to himself." Clark had a huge struggle in his heart, and the expression on his face kept changing. He gritted his teeth and looked at his chest, as if he wanted to see the letter S drawn by the Godfather. Seeing that Clark seemed to be in a state of emotional fluctuation, Peter wanted to reach out and take off the ring. Unexpectedly, Clark grabbed Peter's hand and shook his head at him. "No, Godfather, you are not that kind of person, the kind of person who wants to do something to the Godfather, right?" Peter said to him in a serious tone. John and Star-Lord next to him also looked at the two nervously. They were ready to rush up and beat Clark up as soon as anything went wrong. In short, they would never let Clark hurt his father. "Sorry, Godfather." Clark finally couldn't resist the temptation of the red kryptonite ring and reached out to push Peter forward. Bang! Peter grabbed Clark's hand, and his face was instantly covered with clouds. This bear kid actually dared to really do something to him. It seems that he has been beaten for 3 days and he has gone crazy. With his heart filled with anger, the energy of the power of the gods gathered in his hands, and bang burst out, instantly knocking Clark, who was unable to react, out. Star-Lord and Azu, who were about to rush over at this time, were stunned when they saw Clark flying backwards. When did Dad become so violent that he knocked Clark away without saying a word? Clark, who was a little confused, was standing up and preparing to fight back, but he didn't expect Peter to move in front of him. And he instantly noticed that there was a green necklace on the Godfather's neck, exactly the same as Lana's. How did Lana's necklace get on the Godfather's neck? Clark, who entered an abnormal mind, instantly thought that Peter's necklace was Lana's. In fact, this necklace wrapped in lead was collected by Peter himself. It was used when dealing with a parasite before. The moment Peter, wearing a kryptonite necklace, approached Clark. He felt a sense of weakness and powerlessness, as if all the strength in his body had been drained. Peter, who shamelessly used kryptonite to deal with Clark, rushed in front of him in an instant. The fist turned into a residual image and hit Clark the killer. The iron fist made a bang and hit Clark's chin. Ugh! Clark groaned in pain and stepped back a few steps. Clark, who was staggering, immediately raised his arms to block Peter's charge. After preparing to take the blow, he looked for an opportunity to distance himself and continue to attack. However, he still underestimated the power of this blow. Weakened by kryptonite, he felt Peter's lightning-like fist hitting his arms, just like a hammer hitting them. Both arms were sore and painful that he didn't even have the strength to exert force. Star-Lord and Zoo, who were watching the battle from a distance, didn't know that Peter had already put on the special attack on Clark necklace. Seeing their father beating Clark, they couldn't help but look at each other and saw the uneasiness in each other's hearts. After the father was completely angry, he beat his son really hard. The act of beating Clark left a shadow in the hearts of Star-Lord and Zoo. And let the two come to a consistent conclusion: no matter what, you can't make your father really angry. Look at the father who went berserk and beat Clark without holding back. Jonathan, who was lying on the ground on the other side, was also a little stunned when he saw his son being beaten up. Clark, where did the momentum you had when dealing with your own father just now go? Peter, who was angered by Clark, didn't waste words with him. The figure approached Clark and punched down in the air, hitting him in the face. This kid is so annoying, just give him a beating. With a bang, the fist that hit his face was blocked by Clark's hand. But he immediately felt a force shaking his arm, and his arm was slightly bounced back while his body staggered back uncontrollably. Then Peter's arm shook, and then he exerted force, and his fist turned into a palm and pressed towards the opponent's chest. With a bang, Clark was pressed directly to the ground, feeling a burst of pain and fatigue in his body. He was panting heavily, and his forehead was full of sweat. Seeing Peter coming towards him, as if he was going to continue to beat him up, Clark suddenly had other ideas in his mind. Freedom and shackles, all thrown aside by him, now he just wants to be the person the Godfather wants him to be. Taking advantage of the moment when Peter hadn't made a move yet, he quickly took off the red kryptonite ring. Peter was about to continue, but he didn't expect Clark to take off the ring himself. Jonathan, Zoo and Star-Lord were also stunned by Clark's coquettish operation. Several people didn't expect him to take off the ring by himself. After all, they had personally experienced Clark's arrogance before. Godfather, Clark stretched out his hand to Peter, and the hostility in his eyes disappeared. Peter looked at Clark, who took off the ring, stunned for a moment, then quickly came over and bent down to support him. Are you okay? Clark, after seeing his son take off the ring, Jonathan hurried over to hold his hand. Dad, I'm sorry. Clark had sobered up and apologized to Jonathan guiltily. I didn't mean it. At that time, it was as if someone else was controlling me. I'm sorry, Dad. It's okay. Dad knows that it wasn't you, Jonathan whispered to comfort Clark. Chapter 107, Throwing the Mop at Azu's Head. Looking at the uneasy Azu, Peter wanted to give the boy a good beating. But when he thought it was not appropriate, he finally suppressed his anger and glared at the two. Go home, Padrick Farm. Mr. Padrick, yes, I'm Terry George from the National Transportation Safety Board. The white man in a suit shook hands with Peter. I'm sorry that such an unfortunate thing happened. Terry George looked at the messy scene and said to Peter, can we talk alone? Peter spread his hands and said in a declining tone, Mr. George, if you want to know the details of the plane crash, I'm sorry, I was not at the scene at the time, so I can't provide you with the information you want to know. After that, he looked through the big hole in the house to the messy living room. There is no doubt that the living room was destroyed by Azu and Clark. There are also several damaged walls of the barn this time, and the floor inside has sunk in several holes. This must be the masterpiece of the three naughty children. Unable to hold back his eyelids from twitching slightly, he suppressed his anger, took a deep breath and said to the other party, Mr. George, I care more about the compensation issue than discussing the details of the plane crash. Look at my living room, it looks like it was bombed by a bomb, and the crops on the farm are all destroyed. Are the people from Boeing Airlines on the scene? I would like to talk to them about the specific compensation. Looking at Peter with a serious expression, Terry George was stunned for a moment, nodded and said unnaturally, of course, Mr. Padrick, this is your right. Star-Lord and Azu next to him were stunned when they saw Peter unceremoniously identify all the damage as the result of the plane crash and demand compensation. Can it still be operated like this? Night. After a day, when the plane on the farm was towed away and the news media carrying long guns and short guns finally left, the farm that had been bustling for a day finally quieted down. After simply cleaning up the dilapidated living room, Peter sat on the damaged sofa and looked at Azu and Star-Lord standing in front of him. John, you almost crashed a plane into the farm. Peter looked at Zu with a bad look. Don't you have anything to say to me now? Zu looked at the equally nervous Star-Lord next to him, and apologized to Peter with a stammer. Dad, I'm sorry, I did that in a fit of anger. Clark's words angered me, and I didn't think about the consequences at all. You are always eloquent. John, why were you angered by Clark? Even if his personality was different at the time, you shouldn't be led by his words. This is not like your usual self, because, he said I was a child who would never grow up. Zu raised his eyes and looked at Peter in frustration. Dad, am I a child who would never grow up? Looking into Zu's eyes, Peter's heart was suddenly touched. After hesitating for a moment, he stood up and walked to Azu and rubbed his head. No, of course you will grow up. We all grow up, from immaturity to maturity. Did you know? There will be 3 stages in our lives: camel, lion, and baby. Azu heard this and asked him puzzledly, Father, is there any difference? Camel means obeying others, a state of moving forward with a heavy burden and being passive, just like a person in society, always going with the flow and unable to find his true self. Peter said to him, Lion wants to have complete control over his own life. Lion represents power, conquest and desire, and also represents the pursuit of freedom and getting rid of constraints. Clark said you can't grow up because he thinks you can't find your true self yet, and he thinks he has become a lion, so he ridicules you who is still in the camel stage. Peter paused for a moment and continued, but in fact, Clark is also a camel. You both have extraordinary talents, which put you a long way from ordinary people. Unlike ordinary people, you in childhood will always be seeking your goals and looking for your true self. This is a stage that you and Clark must go through, so it should not be laughed at, and there is no need to be afraid. Hearing this, Zu seemed to understand something and nodded. I understand, Dad. I will definitely become a lion. Of course, Dad believes that you will grow up to be a lion, and I also believe that you will lead a different life. Star-Lord, who was standing next to him, saw that Peter's anger seemed to have subsided, and he mustered up the courage to plead for Zu. Dad, John didn't mean it. He was trying to save me at the time. If he didn't stop Clark, Clark would burn the farm and spend all of Dad's credit cards. Peter's expression was relatively calm at first, but when he heard Star-Lord say that Clark had swiped his credit card, his mouth slightly opened and his expression suddenly changed. He swiped my credit card? Yes, Star-Lord said cautiously. Peter's blood pressure rose after hearing this news, and he regretted it very much. I didn't beat this kid lightly just now. Zu, on the other side, was stunned when he heard Star-Lord pleading for him to his father. He cast an incredible look at the other party. He never thought that Star-Lord would plead for him. How could this be possible? He had threatened to beat him before. And this kid even threatened him with his father. It was surprising enough that he didn't complain to his father, and he even pleaded for himself. Azu, who was in a complicated mood, puffed up his cheeks and exhaled. For a moment, he suddenly felt that this brother was not so hateful. Peter, who was in a bad mood because his credit card was swiped, looked helplessly at the 2 anxious children. Okay, Daddy won't punish you too harshly this time, but you still made a mistake, so you have to do something to make up for your mistakes. Star-Lord asked nervously. What do we need to do, Dad? You'll know tomorrow. As soon as he finished speaking, the template stuck to the side of the window suddenly fell on the broken glass. Azu and Star-Lord couldn't help but look at each other and lowered their heads even more. Peter, the next day, early in the morning. Star-Lord was sitting on the bus, wearing headphones, looking at the non-mainstream child sitting in the front row. The non-mainstream child's face was expressionless like metal. Behind him, there was a stupid guy wearing a truck driver's hat with one side erected. This guy's head shook violently up and down with the music, but no one could hear his music. Opposite him was a fat old man, his gray hair squeezed under a shower cap, like a tabby cat trapped in a plastic bag, holding a mobile phone and talking very loudly. Star-Lord turned his head and looked at Azu, who was sitting next to him. The atmosphere between the two was a little awkward. Ahem, So Dad's punishment for us is to let us go to the welfare home to volunteer. Star-Lord took off his headphones and asked Clark. Yes, Dad asked Clark to come and help him repair the farm, and let us do volunteer work, saying that this is serving a sentence outside prison. Azu's impression of Star-Lord was not as bad as before, so he did not ignore him like before. But I don't like that kind of place. Azu looked at the scenery outside the window and said to Star-Lord, the faint smell of urine and bad smell, and the smell of deodorant sprayed to cover it, everything in the nursing home smells bad, and it is full of the smell of death. The smell of death? Star-Lord didn't know what this meant. Yes, death and ash, just like Terry's funeral. Azu thought of the funeral of Lewis's youngest son. It seems that the fate of the people there is coming to an end. The tickets have been checked, the alarm has been set, and then the god of death dipped his finger in black ash to draw a mark on their foreheads. Even if the blood of the lamb is painted on the door, it cannot be avoided. The blood of the lamb. The story of Moshe's 10 Commandments records that Moshe asked the Jews to paint the blood of the lamb on the door to prevent God from bringing disaster. Star-Lord seemed to understand what he heard. During the chat, the car door opened with a click sound, and the bus arrived at the destination. The two quickly got off the bus and rushed to the welfare home. Since Peter had contacted the director in advance, the two were quickly assigned work by the director after entering the welfare home. Star-Lord smelled a special smell of the welfare home and looked around. There are not many elderly people in the small social welfare home. An old man was sitting in a fluffy blue recliner, continuing to solemnly finish his cereal, fruity cereal rings or some cheap imitations. Water stains on the ceiling, crooked paintings. In the corner is an old TV, and a smaller flat screen is placed on the discarded box above it. Star-Lord exhaled a breath of boredom and began to clean the floor. Azu was taking care of the hospital garden outside. After a while, Star-Lord felt a little tired. His obese body caused him to easily fall into a state of fatigue once he did physical labor. John, can I ask you a question? Star-Lord walked to the edge of the garden with tools and asked Azu, who was watering. What, Aunt Kelly, is she really my mother? Azu was a little surprised to hear the question asked by Star-Lord. Yes, Star-Lord, your mother is Ms. Kelly, and it was your father who picked you up together. Azu's eyebrows moved, and he said seriously, you have the same talent. This should be the best proof. Hearing Azu say that he was picked up, Star-Lord's mood suddenly became bad. But Aunt Kelly said no. She said she had never been married. Who knows? Haven't you heard of saying? Don't believe everything a woman says. Zu put down the tools in his hand. Compared to you, you don't look like your father at all. Isn't this the best proof? You said I don't look like my father. Hearing Zu say that he doesn't look like Peter, Star-Lord's brows immediately frowned. The hand holding the mop gradually exerted force. You are wrong. I am as smart as my father, and we like the same music. You are smart. Zu seemed to have heard something funny. You are not smart, you are just precocious. Hearing Zu's words, Star-Lord was ready to raise the mop and hit this guy on the head. However, before he could throw the mop on Zu's head, a scream suddenly came from the welfare home. After hearing the sound, Star-Lord put down the mop, and Zu also turned his head and looked curiously in the direction of the scream. In the room where the scream came from, everyone in the welfare home looked at a corpse lying on the bed, all stunned. Some people with poor psychological tolerance even vomited directly. Chapter 108 I will definitely die before Dad. On the other side, at Smallwood School, Peter went to the hardware store to buy nails for house repairs, and stopped by the school to deal with Zu's affairs. He walked on the green lawn behind the school and passed an art class. The students sat in a semicircle around a female teacher in a batik dress giving a lecture. Peter's super hearing could hear the crunching sound of all the students using paintbrushes to outline the falling leaves. After looking at the students, he walked straight to Martha McConaughey's office. Mr. Patrick, Martha was a little surprised to see Peter in school. After all, she could only see Peter once during parent-teacher conferences. Hello, Ms. McConaughey, Peter greeted her. I hope I don't disturb you. No, of course not. Martha stood up a little excitedly, but quickly concealed her emotions. I heard about the plane incident. Thank God, you didn't have any accidents. Thank you. Peter thanked her, and after a few pleasantries, he told her his purpose, to deal with the previous complaints about Zu. Because Azu often gets into trouble, he has been complained by many teachers and parents. No problem, Martha nodded, indicating that with her here, the matter will be resolved quickly. With the help of the enthusiastic and beautiful teacher, Peter quickly dealt with Azu's affairs. He looked up at the dark circles under her eyes and asked casually, "Teacher Martha, haven't you had a good rest recently?" After being asked by Peter, Martha was stunned for a moment and replied, "Maybe. Maybe I'm a little tired recently." 10 minutes later, accompanied by Teacher Martha, Peter walked out of the school. When the two walked past a bench, the female teacher who taught art before sat here and stood up to greet the two. The woman was wearing a batik dress, with a sweet face and a slender figure. When she saw Peter and Martha approaching, she stretched out a hand. "Hi, Martha." Katie, the art teacher named Katie, smiled at Martha. "I'm waiting for you. This is," she looked at Peter, "your friend, Martha." Martha McConaughey glanced at Peter and said guiltily, "Yes, although Peter was John's parent, he was also half of her friend. After all, he saved her from the gang, so there should be nothing wrong with saying that. We are so familiar with each other. Martha, you should introduce yourself." The woman stretched out her hand and introduced herself to Peter. "I am Katie Wisniewski, an art teacher here." Peter looked at Martha, who smiled awkwardly. "She is my friend." In fact, she was not familiar with the new art teacher. The other party was mysterious and was said to have unclear relationships with many men, which made her stay away from him. "Peter Patrick." Peter stretched out his hand to her. The woman in front of him gave her a feeling that something was wrong. Especially the other party's eyes, which gave off a look that made him feel uncomfortable. "I've heard of you, Mr. Patrick. You've become a celebrity in town. A passenger plane made an emergency landing in your farmland." Katie Wisniewski blinked her curious eyes. "Mr. Patrick, do you mind telling me about the thrilling scene that happened at that time?" Actually, Peter shook his head. "I was not at the scene, so I don't know the specific situation of the scene." He nodded slightly to Martha next to him. "I have something else to do, so excuse me." After greeting the two, he turned and left. Katie Wisniewski, watching Peter's back with interest, her eyes shining slightly. At night, Patrick's farm. The farm's renovation work has been going on for a day, and the living room has barely restored 70% of its previous appearance. When Peter entered the living room, Azu was watching TV intently. After hearing Peter's footsteps, he quickly changed the channel with the remote control. Without noticing Zu's movements, Peter said to him, "Go upstairs and call Star-Lord down. It's time to prepare for dinner." Zu stood up and said hesitantly, "Dad, Star-Lord is not doing well." "What? Did you fight?" "No, he just doesn't have a good appetite." "I don't think he has an appetite for dinner." Zu told him about the scene that happened in the welfare home during the day. "You mean, you saw the dead old woman? Her body was on the bed, completely dried up?" "Overnight." "That's right, Dad. Star-Lord saw this kind of scene for the first time, so he couldn't accept it." Peter looked at Zu with suspicion. "Why didn't you stop him? You should know that your brother is too young to see these." He seriously suspected that Zu did it on purpose. After all, this naughty kid has always been at odds with Star-Lord. Although the relationship between the two eased after the incident with Clark, he didn't believe that the two could reconcile as before. "I tried, but his curiosity was too strong." Zu said it was not his fault. "Okay, go wash your hands first. I'll go upstairs and call him." Meanwhile, upstairs, Star-Lord was experiencing a nightmare. In the room in his dream, Star-Lord suddenly saw a black shadow passing by, and he sat up immediately in shock. The next moment, the black shadow flashed in front of his eyes again, then ran to the corner, and then jumped into the bathroom, accompanied by a rustling sound. Star-Lord, who didn't know he was dreaming, got out of bed in the dark and picked up the butterfly knife beside the bed. He bought it for $6 at a flea market near Smallville Talon. Tiptoeing on the carpet, Star-Lord secretly followed a black shadow and walked in. At the door of the bathroom, he reached out and fumbled on the wall for a few times, and found the light switch. Click, the dazzling light poured down instantly, illuminating the entire bathroom. As his sight focused, Star-Lord saw a red film balloon in the corner of the bathroom, floating in the corner of the wall, up and down. Looking closely, there was a picture of a cake on the balloon, and the flames of the candles on the cake formed a line of words, "Happy Birthday, Star-Lord." Just as he walked towards the balloon, he suddenly saw that the picture of the cake on it had changed. The picture of the cake, which was supposed to be a picture of a cake, suddenly turned into a skull logo. In the wide-open mouth of the skull were 2 rows of uneven teeth. A dialogue box emerged from between the teeth, and the words in the box read, "Happy Death Day, Star-Lord." Whoosh, he woke up from his dream. Wiping the sweat from his head, Star-Lord looked around and gradually realized that he was dreaming. Knock. 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 There was a knock on the door. Are you asleep, Star-Lord? Dad. Star-Lord was lying on the bed. When he saw Peter coming, he immediately got up. What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Peter put his hand on Star-Lord's head and rubbed it. Feeling the warmth and reassurance of his palm, Star-Lord let out a long sigh. I'm fine, Dad, biting his lower lip. He hesitated for a moment and asked Peter, Dad, can I ask you a question? Of course. Peter looked into Star-Lord's eyes and said, will you leave me? No, of course not. Why do you ask? Today I saw dead people in the welfare home. Star-Lord couldn't help but lower his head. Well, it's Dad's fault. Peter took the initiative to admit his mistake. When he asked the two to volunteer at the welfare home, he did not consider this emergency. Star-Lord may be psychologically traumatized by seeing such a shocking scene at such a young age. It seems that I have to counsel him well, or hire a psychologist? If the Martian hunter is in Metropolis, he can come over to play a guest role as a psychologist. No, Dad, it's not your fault. I'm not afraid of that death scene. I'm just afraid of losing you. Star-Lord looked at him and said in a depressed mood, I often dream, Dad. I even dreamed about my birthday just now. Your birthday? Are you looking forward to your birthday? No, Dad, it's a very bad birthday. Star-Lord talked about his dream just now. In Peter's shocked eyes, he continued, Dad, besides this, I often have other dreams, and the feeling is very bad. In the dream, I grabbed the sheets and struggled hard, trying to get out of the quilt and get out of bed, but I was tightly wrapped by the quilt. There was an iron railing welded on the edge of the bed that I couldn't climb over. It seemed that there was an invisible wall around me, pressing me and preventing me from breathing freely. Star-Lord described his dream to Peter. I feel like I'm trapped in a box, with less and less air. I always dream of death. I dream of a woman who is my mother. She is very thin and has little flesh on her face. She holds my hand and says goodbye to me. Star-Lord's eyes are already filled with tears when he says this. So, Dad, you won't leave me, right? No, of course not. Peter patted Star-Lord's shoulder, hugged him in his arms and whispered to comfort him. Star-Lord's dreams are the same as Azu's, which are all fragments of his past life. Star-Lord originally came from a single-parent family, and his mother became thinner and thinner due to cancer. Watching his mother gradually walk towards death day by day in her powerlessness, the young Star-Lord was filled with pain and fear of death. Until the day his mother died, he ran away from home because he couldn't accept this fact. As a result, he happened to be kidnapped by aliens. Recalling the information he remembered from his past life, Peter held Star-Lord in his arms and comforted him. Dad will not leave you. Even death cannot separate us. Dad swears to you, then you can't be absent from every birthday of mine. Dad, can you do it? Star-Lord made his request. He hoped that every birthday he spent would be accompanied by his father, so that he would never feel the approach of death. Why can't you be absent from every birthday? Because I will definitely die before Dad. Chapter May 3rd be a little late. I was delayed today. Everyone can go to bed early. Sorry. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 109 Unexpected Farm Visitors. No, Star-Lord, you will definitely live longer than Dad. Peter was stunned for a few seconds, then took a deep breath and asked him, why do you think so? Because I don't want to experience the feeling of losing you, Dad, Star-Lord said in a low voice. Dad, do you remember the tape I gave you? Yes, there is a song by a British singer in it. Star-Lord whispered the lyrics, I will die before you, and never see the glory of this perfect day turn dim or disappear. In this way, Dad, if I die before you, I will not experience the glory of the perfect day turn dim or disappear. Peter did not expect Star-Lord's heart to be so delicate and sensitive. He hugged him to his chest with mixed feelings. No, Dad will not let this happen. You will never die before Dad. He suddenly remembered what he had said to Zoo about birthdays before. Originally, I thought that birthdays were like a turnstile, which would take me farther and farther, deeper and deeper, until suddenly one day, birthdays became irrelevant and completely inevitable. But now, birthdays seem to have a different meaning for him. Holding Star-Lord, he looked out the window at the dark night. The bright moonlight shone in, casting a layer of silver light on the ground. The next day, Early in the morning, Peter called Officer Chandler to inquire about what happened at the Small welfare home. After the Lucifer incident, Chandler felt a little distant from Peter. Knowing Peter's terrifying side, he was afraid that the other party would kill him if he was in a bad mood. Ahem, Chandler coughed and pretended to be calm, saying to Peter, "The police are investigating this matter. There is no specific clue yet, but this is very similar to what happened a few years ago. Do you remember? That year, people and livestock in the town were sucked of blood one after another, but," he hesitated and said, "this is very different. The bodies look like they were dried naturally, like this." Peter nodded. "Similar things have happened in the town several times. Most of them are caused by humans who have been infected and mutated by green kryptonite. This town always has a few pieces of kryptonite and mutants infected by kryptonite popping up from time to time. Martian Manhunter is right. Clark is very lucky to grow up healthily." Clark, after Peter hung up the phone, he shouted to Clark, who was still hammering nails outside, "It's getting late, you should go to school." Clark scratched his head. "Godfather, I don't want to go to school today." "Why?" "I want to help you fix the farm." Clark felt that he had the responsibility to fix the broken farm. If it weren't for the red kryptonite ring, this wouldn't have happened. "I think these workers are enough." Peter pointed to the workers who were working hard around him and said, "Okay, go to school." Clark wanted to say something else, but seeing Peter's expression that seemed to be unquestionable, he finally nodded with a bitter face. Smallville, Talon Club. Chandler, who ended the call with Peter, breathed a sigh of relief. Every call with Peter made him tremble. "Maybe I should apply for retirement from the police department in advance," Chandler complained to himself and drank the wine in the glass. Sitting next to him was a young man wearing a baseball cap and a black woolen coat. If Azu was here, he would recognize this poor boy who was taught a lesson by him at a glance, Bruce Wayne. Bruce stood up after secretly listening to Chandler's conversation. Carrying his bag, he walked to the beverage vending machine and put the coins in to buy a bottle of beverage. When he was about to leave with a beverage, he suddenly heard a cry for help from behind. Turning around, he saw a few bikers molesting a waitress. "Hey, don't you know there is a police officer here?" Bruce pointed his finger at Chandler, but was surprised to find that the other party had disappeared. "Police officer? You, a guy who hasn't even grown all his hair, are you looking for death?" The leader of the biker gang looked at him unkindly. "I don't want to say this, but it's obvious that's what I'm planning to do." Seeing that the police didn't work, Bruce decided to solve it himself. Hearing this, the veins on the forehead of the biker gang leader bulged. "Great. I hope you can keep it like this later." After saying that, he looked around and waved to Bruce. The next moment, a group of biker gang members rushed towards Bruce. Seeing that the opponent was attacking him, Bruce immediately turned sideways and flexibly dodged the first black man who rushed towards him. He kicked back hard, and with a bang, Neeb was kicked to the ground, knocking over a wine table, and the wine was scattered all over the floor. He did not pause at all, and looked at the white biker gang member who was rushing in front. He suddenly lowered his body and took a step forward. After Bruce dodged the white man's fist, he punched out and instantly blew the white man's nose. The latter was immediately stimulated by the intense pain and lost consciousness. "Damn it! Quick! Catch him!" The biker gang leader was even more furious when he saw that he couldn't subdue the opponent in the first place, even with so many of his followers. Seeing a group of people rushing over, Bruce, who believed in not being a hero, immediately fled towards the security door. Seeing that Bruce seemed to want to escape, the sturdy biker gang leader quickly chased him. The opponent rushed towards Bruce, who was trying to escape like a bull in a porcelain shop. Any customers he touched were knocked to the left and right by his elbow, the tables were knocked against each other, and the drinks were spilled. For a while, the customers in the bar screamed and became a mess. After escaping from the security door, Bruce soon found that the alley in front of him was a dead end. "Okay, I knew it wouldn't be so easy." Bruce put down his bag, moved his wrist, and punched the bull who was rushing over with a strong punch on the left face. To his surprise, the opponent's skin and flesh were as thick as a strong male bear, and he actually withstood his attack. The motorcycle gang leader showed a cruel smile on his face, then bullied and tightly wrapped Bruce with his strong arms, as if to crush him. Under the tremendous force, Bruce only felt the blood rushing to his head, and his senses were like a balloon filled with blood, constantly expanding and getting bigger. Bruce, who was strangled by the neck, did not lose his composure. Resisting the cramped numbness of his five senses, He threw his head back hard and hit the opponent's nose with his forehead. The collision made the motorcycle gang leader cry and win Bruce a larger space to shake. Finally, in the opponent's painful state of powerlessness, he broke free from the opponent's control and hit the opponent's eye socket with an elbow, giving him a heavy blow. Bang! The dizzy biker gang leader fell heavily to the ground, and the ground was shaken by his strong body. Half an hour later, Bruce stood at the door of the farm with a backpack. Looking at the messy farm in front of him, he was stunned. Was Mr. Patrick's house attacked by terrorists? Or was he wrong? He took out a note from his pocket and carefully compared the address. Hey, Mr. Patrick. Peter happened to walk out of the living room at this time. Bruce saw Peter, whom he hadn't seen for more than 3 years, and greeted him excitedly. Hearing a familiar voice, Peter looked up at the other party. What he saw was a tall, handsome and noble young man. You are, Peter walked towards him in confusion and asked in an uncertain tone, you are Bruce Wayne? Yes, sir, I am Bruce Wayne. Bruce gave him a hug excitedly. I didn't expect, sir, that after so many years, you haven't changed at all. Actually, I'm not old. Peter coughed and looked at Bruce Wayne, who had grown into an adult in front of him. Although Bruce often wrote to him in the past 3 years. But he had never met him, so he didn't recognize him at the first time. I didn't expect you to grow so fast. He didn't expect that in just 3 years, the poor boy in the rain had grown so tall. Peter asked him, are you an adult, Bruce? 17, a few months away from adulthood. Bruce smiled and replied to him. So, Peter glanced at the bag in his hand. You plan to run away from home? No, I'm past that age. Peter doubted his words. Really? In my impression, Bruce Wayne has always been the stubborn and rebellious teenager. I am also rebellious this time, Bruce explained to Peter. I plan to travel around the world. Although I can learn a lot in Gotham, I think there should be many people and things in this world that I need to experience on the road to achieving my goals. Peter nodded. So your first stop is here. This is my starting point, sir. Bruce looked at the farm that seemed to have been bombed, and asked awkwardly, sir, can you let me stay here for a few days? Star-Lord looked at Bruce, who was working with the workers on the farm, with a suspicious look. Dad, is he a homeless person? Star-Lord saw the other party's bag and dusty clothes, and thought that the other party was a homeless person from somewhere. To be precise, he's going to be a homeless person. Peter looked at Bruce's skillful movements and explained to Star-Lord. Then he must have no father and mother. Star-Lord looked at Bruce with pity. Thanks for the monthly ticket and recommendation ticket support of Dadao. Thank you, readers. Recommended book, Classic American Comics by Shang-Chi, A Spiritual Mentor. If you like it, you can click the link below. Chapter 110, Bruce's Self-Destructive Tendencies. Peter was silent after hearing Star-Lord's inadvertent criticism against Bruce Wayne. Star-Lord didn't realize that there was anything wrong with his words, and continued to ask Peter, Dad, is Bruce going to be the homeless king? What homeless king? Peter was a little confused. Dave used to be a taxi driver, and now he's a homeless man in his car. Azu said he is the homeless king because he knows all the little tricks, such as don't make the windows foggy everywhere, because then the police will know that someone is sleeping inside. Star-Lord introduced him seriously. Then Bruce should not be able to become the homeless king. At most he can be the king of Gotham. Peter replied to Star-Lord, looking at Bruce, who was busy and enthusiastic not far away. It seems that Bruce's image is completely ruined in the eyes of Azu and Star-Lord. Either a down-and-out boy or a homeless man. How can he be associated with a billionaire of Gotham? King of Gotham? Star-Lord nodded and looked thoughtful. Then I want to be the king of the galaxy. You can't conquer the galaxy. Peter pressed Star-Lord's shoulder. Okay, go wash your hands and get ready for dinner. Afternoon. After school, Azu looked at Bruce standing in front of him in shock. You are Bruce Wayne. Azu looked at the young man who had grown taller in front of him and asked in disbelief. He never thought that he would meet Bruce Wayne again in this situation. Yes, I am Bruce Wayne. Long time no see, John. Bruce extended his hand to him. Azu didn't shake hands with him, but looked at him suspiciously from head to toe. Why did you come here? He always had a great vigilance against Bruce. After all, this guy was valued by his father. I plan to travel around the world. Before I leave, I want to meet Mr. Patrick. Bruce was more mature than before and didn't care about Azu's tone. Travel around the world? Zu looked at him suspiciously. Then you will definitely fail. He came up to curse Bruce's journey to fail. Bruce's mouth twitched slightly. I don't care about success or failure. I just want to experience something. He glanced at the messy farm. On the contrary, you, John, your temper has not changed. I think Mr. Patrick will be very troubled. That's between me and my father. You, an outsider, can't do anything about it. Zoo clenched his fists and couldn't help wanting to hit Bruce in the face. This guy is still so annoying after so long. Taking a deep breath, he hypnotized himself. Relax, don't get angry because of this guy. He is just a tiny bastard, an insignificant guy, a complete microorganism. Soon, Zoo's emotions calmed down as he slandered Bruce. Maybe you were right. Bruce didn't continue to talk to Zoo, but walked towards Peter. Turning around and looking at Bruce's back, Zoo narrowed his eyes and took a deep breath. This guy is sticking to Dad again. No. I really have to find a way to beat this guy up. Otherwise, when he goes to travel around the world, there will be no chance. At night, Peter prepared a sumptuous dinner to entertain Bruce. Do you need some wine? Peter asked Bruce with a bottle of wine. Bruce looked up and asked, what kind of wine is it, sir? Hemingway's favorite cocktail. Bruce pondered for a moment. Sir, I remember Hemingway was a diabetic, and his favorite drink was dry martini? Peter asked with a little surprise. Are you sure? I should be sure. Star-Lord next to him asked Bruce curiously. Do you read a lot of things in your daily life? I read all the time. Star-Lord nodded, with an understanding expression. Homeless people like libraries. Homeless? Bruce looked at Star-Lord with a puzzled look. Is this annoying little fat guy really Mr. Patrick's child? Ahem. Peter pretended not to hear, coughed, and took out another bottle of wine from the wine cabinet. Maybe you can try this, Bruce. Vodka and vermouth, sir. Bruce said with a bitter face. I'm not yet an adult. I can't drink, and vodka mixed with vermouth can't become a dry martini. Although he can't drink, Bruce still knows a lot about wine. Martini is gin. It has always been gin. If you add vermouth to vodka, it won't taste like this. Zoo, who was chewing beef, listened to Bruce's wine tasting and asked him, why do you know this if you don't drink? I have a wine cellar at home, and I usually go to study the various wines in it. When Bruce said this, he looked at Peter. Sir, if you are interested, I can give you the wine cellar. Peter was depressed because his credit card was swiped, and when he heard that Bruce was going to give him a wine cellar, his heart moved. Although he was very tempted, it is always a bad thing to receive something without doing anything. When he was about to refuse, Zoo suddenly said, okay, just consider it as the room fee for your stay here. Peter looked at Zoo in astonishment. Do you think the farm is a 5-star hotel? No, 5-star hotels don't charge like this. He turned to look at Bruce and found that the other party looked as if it was a matter of course and didn't think there was anything wrong. Well, it seems that these two people don't take it seriously, so I don't have to take it seriously either. The next day, early in the morning, the tires were burned and screamed on the road kissed by the scorching sun. A Subaru quickly passed through the farm, turned around quickly, and slid and drifted like a piece of melting butter on a frying pan. Then the car arrived at the end of the road, crossed over, and the tires rolled in the grass, and dust flew in an instant. Listening to the roar of the car engine, Peter folded his arms and looked at Bruce who was driving the car. After getting up in the morning, Bruce said that he wanted Peter to teach him some car driving skills, which might be useful when traveling around the world in the future. But now Peter saw that he was so experienced and felt that he might not be able to teach him anything. Bruce, although I don't think I can teach you anything, I still want to say that you should try not to make such an attempt on the actual road. After Bruce turned off the engine and got out of the car, he said to him, I'll listen to you, sir. Bruce walked over and said to him. Peter took a look at the car and said, you are a great driver, Bruce. I don't think you need my professor. I know, sir. Bruce sat down. I just want to talk to you while you drive. Do you have any troubles? A simple trouble. It may sound simple, but Bruce, your life is not simple at all. Bruce nodded, hesitated and asked Peter, yes, sir. Do you know Schopenhauer? Schopenhauer, a German philosopher, the founder of atheism. He has 2 poodles, Bruce explained. He once said, some people say that suicide is the most cowardly act and it is a wrong move, but as we all know, everyone has the most inalienable right to decide on their own life and human rights. I think one day in the future I may destroy myself in a suicidal way, Bruce said suddenly. The words just popped out like a rock jumping out of a sack. Peter looked at Bruce in surprise. Does this kid have any self-destructive tendencies? Why do you feel this way, Bruce? I don't know. I'm young, but I'm very tired, sir. At night, when I close my eyes, it emerges. My dream is like an anchor, and what I see is like lingering death, sucking everything out of my body, making me lose my vitality, and I can't stop anything, sir. For the past 3 years, I have been saving Gotham in my own way. At night, I turn into fear to fight those evils, but death keeps happening, and I seem to be unable to do anything. I hate this feeling and hate my own powerlessness." Peter nodded and asked him, "So you want to travel around the world to find answers?" "Yes, sir. Do you think I should go?" "Of course, I support your behavior." Peter put his hand on the other's shoulder. "Bruce, there are two things in your heart, darkness and light. There is nothing wrong with this, because human beings are made up of darkness and light, and human beings cannot escape. You travel around the world, maybe you can find the real method to help you hide your dark side and show your bright side." He was talking to Bruce when his cell phone suddenly rang. He took out his cell phone and saw that the caller was Officer Chandler. After answering the phone and talking to the other party for a few words, he hung up. "Sir, what's the matter? Some unexpected situation? Can you drive me?" Bruce nodded. "Of course." On the way to the target location, Bruce asked Peter curiously, "Sir, what happened? Have you heard about the spontaneous combustion incident at the Small Welfare Home?" "Yes, I have heard something about it." Peter put his hand on the car window to feel the oncoming wind, and said, "The official statement is a fire, but they only found the ashes of the old lady in the end." Bruce nodded to show that he understood, and after thinking for a while, he said, "I guess the unofficial statement is spontaneous human combustion. I remember a similar incident. In 1978, there was a spontaneous human combustion incident in New Jersey. The person was dancing and was suddenly engulfed by the flames from behind." "Sir, why are you interested in this case?" Bruce asked him. Hearing this, Peter glanced at Bruce and said, "We have a little dispute, and I am a little interested in the murderer behind this matter." Chapter 111, The Depressed Star-Lord Who Wants to Lose Weight. Soon, Bruce drove Peter to the destination. Officer Chandler leaned against a police car on the side of the road. When he saw Peter sitting in the car, he straightened up nervously. "Is there another victim?" Peter got out of the car and walked towards Officer Chandler with Bruce and asked. Bruce was a little surprised when he saw Chandler. "Is this the policeman who ran away from the bar yesterday?" Chandler didn't notice Bruce's expression. He greeted Peter very enthusiastically and took him to a villa next to him. The deceased this time is Harry Hunter, a banker who went back to Smallville for vacation and met with an accident. He introduced them as he walked forward with the two of them. Peter looked at the magnificent decoration around him. "It's a pity that he died early with endless wealth. This may be the script set by the god of death, and humans can change it." During the conversation, Chandler took Peter and Bruce to the living room of the villa. A strange smell in the living room came into the noses of the two. "That's the ashes on the sofa." Chandler pointed at the black ashes on the sofa and said to Peter. Hearing this, Peter walked to the sofa and looked at the traces on it that seemed to be burned to ashes. "Are there no footprints or other clues at the scene?" "No, he didn't install surveillance cameras in his home like he did in the bank." Chandler shrugged his shoulders and muttered to himself, "Could it be the devil's doing?" The last weird murder case he experienced with Peter was still fresh in his memory. He suspected that this incident was similar to the last time. Right, he suddenly remembered something and said to Peter, "The deceased also had a Doberman. The strange thing is that the dog was not found at the scene," and he pointed to the ground. "There were no signs of fighting at the scene. Think about it, if it knew that its owner was in trouble, I think the Doberman would definitely come up and bite, but there were no signs of these. Maybe it was not at the scene at the time." Bruce made his own guess. Chandler shook his head and didn't continue. Peter, standing at the scene, used his supervision to observe the surroundings, and finally found a metal plate behind the curtain. He walked to the window, opened the curtain, and found a small ball of stains and dust. He bent down and picked up the metal plate from inside. It turned out to be a dog tag with the word Buddy engraved on it. "I think I found that lovely Doberman." Peter picked up the dog tag and showed it to the two. "What is this?" Bruce looked at the dog tag in Peter's hand in astonishment, and then looked at the small pile of ashes on the ground. "Sir, you mean, this pile of ashes is that Doberman?" "Oh, I'm afraid so." Peter handed the dog tag to Chandler, who was also stunned. Even the dog was not spared. "This should not be a simple spontaneous combustion incident." Clapping his hands, he said to Chandler, "In short, we have to keep in touch. Officer Chandler, remember to contact me in time if you have any clues." "Okay," Chandler swallowed and said to him. Bruce's brows were always frowned when he drove Bruce back to the farm. "What? Have you found anything? Peter asked him while driving the car. No, not yet, but this is too strange, Bruce said his thoughts. If the human body spontaneously combusts, it is impossible for the dog to spontaneously combust with it, sir. I think it is very likely that it is not a fire or a spontaneous human combustion incident. It is very likely to be man-made. Peter stopped the car at the intersection of the road and said to him, if it was caused by mutants caused by kryptonite, he could recycle green kryptonite again this time. At night, Bruce did not come back for dinner because he had to investigate the spontaneous human combustion incident. Dad, Star-Lord was lying on the bed and stopped Peter, who was about to leave. Can you tell me about Bruce? Of course. Peter came over and sat on the bed. Are you curious about Bruce's story? No, I just want to know the story between Dad and him in the past. That's a long story. Bruce was not so tall at that time. Peter told Star-Lord the story of his acquaintance with Bruce in Metropolis. After listening to his father's story, Star-Lord blinked and asked him, does Bruce really have no parents? Yes. His parents were shot in an alley when he was a child. That sounds regrettable. Star-Lord thought for a moment and said, but, no wonder John is so hostile to Bruce. He thinks Bruce is here to snatch his father from him. Bruce doesn't have such thoughts. Patting Star-Lord on the shoulder, he was ready to leave. Dad, I saw a fortune teller near the Talon Club today. Star-Lord suddenly talked about his discovery today. Fortune teller? Yes, a lady stood on South Street, holding a sign. Psychic fortune telling makes money. $10 can let people know how they died. Peter heard this and became a little interested. Is she accurate? I don't know. I just secretly listened for a while. Star-Lord thought for a while and said to Peter, she said that a person would die accidentally in a fierce jet skiing, another person was eaten by a bear in the living room, and there was Ebola virus, monkey flu, squirrel smallpox. I don't remember the rest. Dad, can you lend me $10? I want to try. Star-Lord sincerely asked Peter to lend him $10. You don't have to believe this, Star-Lord. That lady is not a fortune teller, she is just a storyteller. She tells interesting stories, and the audience is willing to listen to her stories about the uncertain future. Peter probably knew this kind of person, under the guise of fortune telling, casually making up some nonsense that people are willing to listen to. Really? Dad, is she lying? It's not a malicious lie. Peter shook his head. She's just telling a story that people want to hear. Most people don't really care how they're going to die. They just want to know how they're going to live, although many of them don't realize that the two are closely linked. Yeah, Star-Lord nodded. Dad, then she's a liar? Peter was silent for a few seconds. He didn't quite understand why Star-Lord cared whether the other person was a liar. But soon he knew why. Star-Lord said frustratedly, she said that if I don't lose weight, I'll choke to death on a cold cheese steak. I want her to calculate it for me again. After a moment of silence, Peter comforted him. No, you won't choke to death on a cold cheese steak. She's just scaring you. Dad will help you take down her stall tomorrow, okay? After threatening a child like this, it seems that there will be justice tomorrow. No, Dad, I think what she said makes sense. Star-Lord lowered his voice and said to him, I want to be as thin as Bruce. Wait, Peter interrupted him and looked at him. Star-Lord, are you deliberately lowering your voice to speak? I'm not. You are. Peter looked at him suspiciously. Are you imitating Bruce's voice? I'm not, Dad. This is my voice. Star-Lord lowered his voice and deliberately made a low voice. I'm like this, Dad. Exhaling, looking at the suddenly silly Star-Lord, Peter decided not to argue with this naughty child. Okay, remember to go to bed early. Peter rubbed his hair, got up and left the room. When turning off the lights, Star-Lord made a low voice again. Good night, Dad. Peter. The next day, early in the morning, Star-Lord and Azu looked at Bruce, who appeared in the living room in shock. Bruce did not appear alone. He was accompanied by a beautiful woman. Peter came down from upstairs and saw Bruce and the beautiful woman next to him in the living room, and his expression could not help but be stunned. This is staring at the familiar appearance of the beauty. His brows slightly frowned. Isn't this teacher Katie Wisniewski, Martha's colleague whom he met at school a few days ago? When did Bruce become so close to this sexy painting teacher? Seeing Peter appear, Bruce hurried over to introduce him. Sir, this is my girlfriend Katie Wisniewski. Katie Wisniewski smiled and extended her hand to Peter. Mr. Padrick, I'm glad we meet again. Do you know each other? Bruce asked in surprise. Not long ago, Katie Wisniewski explained to Bruce. A few days ago, we dealt with each other because of something at school. Peter was stunned when he heard Bruce say that this was his own girlfriend. How old is this kid now? He is so playboy and has a girlfriend casually? Suppressing the strangeness in his heart, Peter pretended to be calm and asked Bruce, "Didn't you go to investigate the incident? Is this the result of your investigation? When I was investigating at school, I met Katie. We talked about some things and found that we got along unexpectedly. We have the same hobbies and opinions. We fell in love at first sight." Love at first sight. Peter looked at Bruce's face with suspicion. Was he just attracted by his beauty? Besides, he didn't believe that Bruce would be so reckless. This kid, was he under the other party's spell? Although many thoughts flashed through his mind, the expression on Peter's face did not change at all. He coughed and shook the hand that Katie stretched out. The moment their palms touched each other, a strange feeling spread throughout his body. Katie didn't seem to notice the strangeness and continued to smile at Peter. Pulling his hand out, Peter looked at Bruce. "Bruce, I think we need to talk." Chapter 112, A Zoo with Perverted Ideas. Bruce walked forward, and Peter and him walked to a deserted place. "Sir, is there any problem?" Bruce asked him doubtfully. "Do you really like her?" "Of course, she is the one destined for me," Bruce said firmly. "She helped me find my life's purpose, sir, but you don't seem to know her very well." Peter looked into the other's eyes, wanting to know whether Bruce was charmed by the other or suddenly fell into the trap of love. "Bruce, it's only been less than a day, and you don't know her character, background, and these things. I think you should be more cautious." Bruce nodded. "Sir, I understand that feeling. Even though we haven't known each other for a long time, she gives me the feeling that I have been waiting for a long time. This feeling will not lie." "Then are you still going to travel around the world?" Peter moved his eyebrows and asked the other party. "About this, I think I have to think about it carefully," Bruce frowned and said with some embarrassment. "Really? Don't forget the path you chose at the beginning, Bruce." Peter patted the other's shoulder. "People are born lonely and don't want to face the unknown alone, but this desire for others is a manifestation of fear of life. People should not cling to love. Only by accepting the loneliness in their hearts can they become strong." After speaking to the other party, Peter turned and left. Bruce stared at Peter's back and fell into unspeakable doubts. At night, in the barn, after Zoo and Star-Lord fell asleep, Peter stood in the barn and looked up at the stars in the sky. When he was free, he liked to come here to observe the stars. It was probably the meteor shower that brought him to his interest in astronomy. In the clear night sky, the stars were shining. A milky white light band that spanned the sky and ran from north to south stretched across the sky, attracting Peter's attention. The white light band was like a spinning galaxy, exuding a different charm. Guardians of the Galaxy, he suddenly thought of the team that Star-Lord was in his previous life. "It's a pity that you can't become the king of the galaxy this time." Shaking his head, Peter threw the Guardians of the Galaxy out of his mind, picked up a professional astronomical telescope, and observed the stars in the sky. While observing, he suddenly heard footsteps, the sound of stepping on the wooden stairs. Peter put down the telescope and saw that it was Katie Wisniewski wearing a sexy purple dress, slowly walking towards him. "Miss Wisniewski?" Peter looked at the lady walking towards him and frowned and asked, "Are you going to see Bruce?" "He's not here, no." Katie Wisniewski shook her head and smiled at him. "Actually, I'm here to see you." "To see me?" Peter looked around and said to her, "I think Bruce must not want to see you here, and it's late at night, you and me, the two of us. Why do you have to talk about him?" "Why not talk about you?" Katie Wisniewski walked over, approached him, and licked her sexy flaming red lips. "You have many secrets, Peter, as deep and boundless as the stars. I am willing to be an explorer to explore the starry sky." Peter nodded. "Do you like astronomy?" He wanted to see what this woman wanted to do. Seeing Peter pretending to be stupid, Katie Wisniewski took another step towards him. Exhaling warm and charming air from her mouth, she whispered, "I like astronomy. And I like you even more. Most girls like young boys, but I like mature men more." Peter frowned and looked at her. "Am I old?" He felt insulted. He just grew a beard recently to cover up his youthful ability, but it has nothing to do with old, right? "You are not old, but mature. I like this feeling," she exhaled, showing her sexiness wantonly. "Your experience is not comparable to those young boys, even though boys have enthusiasm." Really, Peter didn't expect that the other party could drive. "I was attracted to you the first time I saw you at school. In fact, I hope to strengthen our relationship." As she said that, She stretched out her hand to Peter's shoulder. But unexpectedly, Peter grabbed her arm the next second. "Sorry, I have no interest in strengthening my relationship with you." "What?" Katie Wisniewski looked at Peter's hand in shock. She didn't expect that he would resist her charm. "Katie Wisniewski, 5 years ago, you divorced a bank president and got half of his property. The unfortunate president was said to have disappeared inexplicably, and then you became a teacher at Smallwool School." Peter let go of her hand and walked to the edge of the barn. "The strange thing is, there was nothing special about your file 5 years ago. Your image then was completely different from now. It's like you suddenly became a different person. It's really strange." "Can people change suddenly?" Peter said as he turned around to face her. "Teacher Katie Wisniewski, can you tell me the reason?" Katie Wisniewski's eyes became sharp. You investigated me, so why can't I investigate you?" Katie immediately denied it. "No, I didn't." "Then why do you say I'm full of mystery?" "That's because..." Katie was a little at a loss for words, and after taking a deep breath, she said, "It's just a feeling." Peter walked up to her and said to her in a flat tone, "I don't believe in feelings, Miss Wisniewski. I can give you a warning. If you don't want to get into trouble, don't show up in front of Bruce." Who are you?" "Peter Patrick," Katie asked with a complicated expression. "You don't need to know this," Peter said to him and turned away. Katie stared at Peter's back with a gloomy face, and the gloomy expression on her face disappeared only after Peter left. Exhaling the fragrance in her mouth, she became the radiant image before. The next day, early in the morning, after Peter got up and went downstairs, he found that Katie Wisniewski was no longer on the farm. "Bruce, where's your girlfriend?" Peter asked Bruce. "She said she had something to do and had to go out." Azu, who was watching TV nearby, suddenly said to Bruce in a gloomy voice, "She doesn't like you, Bruce." "Bruce," he looked at Azu in astonishment. "What did you say?" "I said, she doesn't like you at all, don't you see it?" Bruce immediately walked in front of Azu and glared at him. "Shut up." "What? Are you angry because I told the truth?" Azu stood up and confronted Bruce. "I can see that she just likes your money and wealth, and has no interest in immature guys like you." Bruce was so angry at Azu that he was about to grab his clothes, but he forgot that Azu is a superhuman. Azu remained motionless and continued to speak to the other party. "I even think she likes Dad more, but if she wants to be my mother, I don't agree at all." Seeing Azu getting more and more outrageous, Peter immediately stopped him. "Hey, John." Hearing Peter's dissatisfied voice, Azu immediately changed his previous arrogance and showed Peter a harmless expression. "Dad, I'm just teaching Bruce some experience in love." "Experience in love?" Peter looked at him suspiciously. "What experience in love do you have?" "Experience of failed love, Dad. Girls in school don't like me very much, which means that if I want to date them, they will definitely not agree. This is the experience of failure," Azu said seriously. "No, this is not your experience of failed love, John. It's just the experience of failed life." After Peter complained to Azu, he looked at Bruce. "Don't pay attention to Azu's words, Bruce, but remember what we said before? Bruce, accepting your loneliness calmly is a sign of strength." Bruce nodded with a confused look in his eyes. Azu, who was next to him, brightened up when he heard this. He was not popular with girls. It turned out to be a strong performance as his father said. After Bruce left, Peter asked Azu, "You saw what happened in the barn last night, right?" Azu immediately felt guilty and did not dare to look Peter in the eye. "No, Dad, I didn't see it." "You can't lie to me, John." "Well, I saw it, Dad, but I didn't mean to." Azu said that he accidentally eavesdropped and saw it. "I wanted to go to Dad to chat, but I happened to run into Teacher Katie there." "Dad, you don't like her, right?" "Why do you ask?" "That's a pity." Azu looked very regretful. "What's a pity?" Peter looked at him suspiciously. "What bad idea are you thinking of?" "No, I'm just thinking." Azu hesitated for a moment, and finally said what he thought. "If Dad, you snatch Bruce's girlfriend and let Bruce call her mom, I think that would be cool." Peter, he was stunned for a moment, then looked at the other party. When did this spare child become so perverted? Was he too lenient with this kid in the past, causing him to become more unscrupulous? After Azu said this, he immediately realized that he had stepped on a landmine. Seeing that Peter was about to explode, he quickly admitted his mistake. "I was wrong, Dad, I was just joking." As soon as he finished speaking, the phone on the farm rang. Peter didn't bother to deal with Azu, and walked to the phone to answer it. After listening to the other party's words, his expression became quite ugly. The suspect in the spontaneous human combustion incident is Katie. Apostrophe. Chapter 113 Black Widow's murderous intentions. Stay home, John, take care of Star-Lord. After instructing Azu, Peter picked up his coat and walked out. Azu, who overheard Peter's call, shrugged his shoulders and turned the TV channel to Fox TV, which was broadcasting an American werewolf in London. He was not very interested in Bruce's safety. In comparison, he would rather watch werewolves killing people on the streets of London. Star-Lord got up and went downstairs, but did not find Peter. He scratched his head and asked Azu, who was watching TV, "Is Dad not here?" "Dad went to save Bruce." "This idiot was played in the palm of a woman's hand," Azu said disdainfully. "He still said he wanted to travel around the world. I suspect he will be shitted to death as soon as he leaves the United States." "Will Dad be in danger?" Star-Lord asked worriedly. "Don't worry, Dad will have no problem dealing with her," Azu said confidently. "Why?" "Because her name is Katie." Azu turned to Star-Lord and said, "A guy with a name like that must not be a powerful character. Katie sounds like a harmless kitten." He paused for a moment and continued, "Dad said that names are very important. They are a way of how we see others. No matter who this person is, as long as he has a weird name, it will stick to you like a dirty, wet dress, so no one will want to see clearly what kind of person you are. They will only see ugly clothes." Azu coughed, rubbed his suddenly itchy nose, and continued to Star-Lord, "Just like if George Clooney was named Artie Finkelmatz, or if Madame Curie was named Grimelda St. Blossom," he added. "I don't think the name Star-Lord is that good either." Star-Lord was stunned. It turned out that Azu's final purpose was to complain about his own name. "Star-Lord is the name given to me by my father, and it is not a name like a dirty and wet dress," Star-Lord said to him, unhappy. Azu was always dissatisfied with his father's name, Star-Lord Little Peter. Now that he saw Star-Lord arguing with him, he immediately stood up. "Yes, it's not that name, but it sounds like a name with a lot of talkative, and nonsense." Azu's hand made a little crocodile puppet, opened his mouth and closed it, as if he was learning to speak. "Star-Lord, Star-Lord, 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 don't you think it's childish? I don't think the name of the motherland is not very good. It sounds like a kind-hearted person who vows to protect the motherland, but in fact, he is not that kind of person at all." After being ridiculed by Star-Lord, Azu's expression immediately became unkind. "This is the nickname given to me by Dad. Star-Lord is also the nickname given to me by Dad. Your nickname is not nobler than mine. Get out." Azu cursed at the other party unhappily. But he soon realized that he would be beaten up when he was swearing and what Peter heard. So he puffed up his cheeks and took a deep breath, then asked Star-Lord vigilantly, "You didn't record it just now, did you?" He knew that Star-Lord was a mean guy. Although he was young, he was much more cunning than Clark. "Of course I recorded it." Star-Lord picked up the recorder in his hand and shook it at Azu. "You complained about the name my father gave me and used foul language. I think my father would be very unhappy if he knew." "Okay." Azu smiled brightly and said to Star-Lord, "You know, Star-Lord, we have always been brothers." He opened his arms and pretended to give Star-Lord a hug. "I love you, brother, we are a family. And I will always protect you." Star-Lord couldn't help but take a step back. "Who did you learn this face-changing trick from? Why do I feel a little scared?" In the car, Peter was talking to Officer Chandler. Katie Wisniewski is from Metropolitan. 5 years ago, her boyfriend suddenly went crazy and murdered her parents. After losing her parents, she inherited all the inheritance. Chandler told Peter about the information he found about this teacher. Then she married a president, and then the president's whereabouts are unknown. There is also this case. It is said that the bank tycoon Harry Hunt had a date with this beautiful teacher before his death. Peter was driving the car while listening to the other party's story. "It sounds exactly like what a Black Widow would do." Peter looked at the crowd on the sidewalk in front of him and asked him, "If we believe that the teacher is the murderer, then why did the old lady in the welfare home do it?" I also checked the information of that lady. She is Katie Wisniewski's aunt. They had some disputes before. That explains it. The revenge of the Black Widow doesn't sound strange. Peter waited until the green light came on and started the car. "Why don't you arrest her? In fact, we have sent a lot of police to arrest her, but no trace of her was found either in the school or in her residence. In short, she is an extremely dangerous woman. The police station will issue a wanted order immediately." After saying a few words to Peter, Chandler hung up the phone. Peter frowned and held the phone. He tried to call Bruce again, but the other party's phone was not dialed. He put the phone away and exhaled. He could only hope that Bruce would have good luck. At the same time, Katie Wisniewski was in a villa outside Smallville. Wearing a sexy long dress, she frowned and looked at herself in the mirror. The sexy style of her flaming red lips made her look radiant with a different kind of charm. She stretched out her hand and placed her fingers on the corner of her eye. Through the mirror, she saw a very subtle wrinkle near the corner of her eye. She looked at the wrinkle with disgust, left the bathroom, walked to the living room and casually took out a rose from the vase. She took a deep breath towards the rose and felt the rich fragrance of the flower. With her action, the rose immediately withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. And the subtle wrinkles at the corner of her eye also disappeared in an instant after absorbing the vitality of the rose. After reinserting the withered rose into the vase, she turned and walked into her room. In the room, Bruce was a little fidgety. He was called here by the other party and thought something was wrong. But Katie took his phone away and told him to wait, saying that there was a surprise. Squeak. Just as Bruce was waiting, Katie Wisniewski pushed the door and walked in. Sorry for the wait, Bruce. Katie walked towards him with a smile. No, actually I didn't wait that long. Feeling the fragrance of the other person's breath coming towards him, Bruce moved to the side awkwardly. In order to ease his inner embarrassment, he pointed to an old portrait hanging on the wall and asked, "Who is this?" Her. Katie Wisniewski looked at the black and white portrait hanging on the wall. This was a portrait taken with an old camera. The woman in 18th century clothes was smiling at the front. Although the woman in the portrait was young, she gave Bruce a dark and gloomy feeling. "This is my ancestor, Elizabeth Paris." Katie Wisniewski stared at the portrait, and a complicated look flashed in her eyes. She was beautiful, wasn't she? Unfortunately, her life ended in the best years. At that time, witch hunting was prevalent in the Middle Ages. The church continued to expand the incident and included the entire female group. My ancestor Elizabeth Paris was one of the witches who were burned to death. She turned her eyes away from the painting, shook her head, and said to Bruce, "But that's a long time ago. Let's talk about the present, Bruce." She sat on Bruce's lap, hugged him and said aggrievedly, "Do you know what Peter Padrick did to me last night, Mr. Padrick?" Bruce was surprised. He didn't expect the other party to mention Peter. "Yes, he was in the barn last night, trying to do something bad to me. If I hadn't resisted desperately, I'm afraid he would succeed." When she said this, Katie Wisniewski showed a pitiful expression. "I never thought that Peter Padrick would be such a person." Katie squeezed out a tear in her eyes, "And he also said that because I am Bruce's woman, he feels more." Hearing Katie's words, Bruce's first reaction in his mind was that it was impossible. He had always regarded Peter as a father figure, and never believed that Peter would do such a thing. If it was Azu who did it and said such perverted words, he would still believe it a little. But Azu was only 10 years old. How could it be possible? "No, it's impossible. Mr. Padrick would not do this." Bruce's mind was in a mess, but he still said firmly, "I know Mr. Padrick." "No, actually you don't know him, and you have never even seen his secrets." As she said that, Katie Wisniewski blew a breath at him and silently chanted a spell. "Now, you have to believe me." The next second Bruce's eyes became cloudy, and he looked at Katie and nodded. "Yes, I believe you." "Very good. There's a pistol in the drawer now. Take it out." Bruce moved mechanically and took out a pistol from the drawer. Katie Wisniewski looked at Bruce's actions with satisfaction and handed him the phone. "Peter Padrick called. Tell him you are here." Chapter 114, Fighting Against the Hypocrite in the Name of Justice. After Peter received Bruce's call, he immediately followed the address given by the other party and rushed to the destination. A few minutes later, he arrived at the door of a villa. Peter's vigilance rose when he noticed the weird feeling coming from the villa. Taking a deep breath, Peter pushed open the door and walked into the living room, and saw Bruce waiting for him on the second floor. "Hey, Bruce." Peter stood in the living room, looking at Bruce with a dazed expression, frowned and shouted at him, "Bruce, what are you doing?" Just as he was about to move forward, he saw Bruce suddenly took out a pistol and pointed it at him. Pointed at by the black muzzle of the gun, Peter stopped and frowned at him. "Bruce, do you want to shoot me?" Looking at the other party's confused look, Peter knew that this kid's mind must have been affected. But being pointed at with a gun still made him very unhappy. "No, you shouldn't do that to Katie. I always regard you as a father. You shouldn't do that." Bruce struggled and said in pain. "What did I do?" From Bruce's words, he roughly understood that the bitch Katie Wisniewski was slandering him for what he had done. "You shouldn't have done that." Bruce didn't answer, but muttered to himself with his head down. Under Katie Wisniewski's control, his finger tapped the trigger, as if he was going to shoot the bullet in the next second. But under the influence of self-control, he never pulled the trigger. Looking at Peter, he felt that he had returned to the crime alley where his parents died. It was just at this time he became the robber holding the pistol, and his parents became Peter. As long as he pulled the trigger, everything would change, and fate would return to its original track with the sound of his gun. No. Holding his arm, Bruce finally did not shoot the bullet, but squatted on the ground and hugged his head in pain. Swoosh! Peter moved towards Bruce in an instant, but found that the environment in front of him suddenly changed. Bruce, who was originally standing on the stairs, had disappeared, and a white mist filled the air instantly. Standing on the second floor where the fog was thick, Peter frowned and looked around. Is this magic? Feeling the unknown breath in the air, Peter, who had fought with Lucifer before, quickly recognized the changes in front of him. It should be the work of magic. Peter Patrick, as he was observing the surrounding environment, he heard a familiar voice. Looking downstairs, Peter found that where the fog had dispersed, Katie Wisniewski walked over with a book. I didn't expect that you are a superhuman. It's really surprising. This is the first time I have seen someone like you. Are you an alien? Katie took a step closer to him, holding a heavy book with ancient patterns. Let me introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Pars. We are similar people. You are an alien and I am a person from the past. People from the past. Peter frowned and looked at him. What do you mean by people from the past? Are you a dead person? In a sense, yes. I was a person from the 18th century and was burned to death by the church. But you know, witches always like to keep some tricks, so I left a magic in this book. She raised the magic book in her hand towards Peter. Once any of my descendants reads this book, I can occupy her body. I was very interested in you, but unfortunately, you destroyed our relationship. But it doesn't matter. I'm being honest with you now, just hoping that you can reconsider this relationship. Oh, Peter nodded. Sorry, I'm not interested in old women. I like wine to be more mellow as it ages, but as for women, the older they are, the less interested I am. By the way, it was not unfair for the church to burn you to death. After all, you are a bitch who didn't even let your own descendants go. Shut up, Katie yelled angrily after being ridiculed by Peter. As she spoke, countless metal weapons came towards Peter. The weapons flashed with cold light and flew in front of Peter in an instant. Seeing this, Peter raised his arm to his chest. With a sound of ding ding dong dong, the metal weapon was bounced to the ground by Peter's arm. Seeing that Peter was unharmed, Katie was surprised and immediately threw a purple magic energy whip towards Peter. Facing Katie's attack, Peter condensed the energy ball of the power of the gods in his body in his hand and also threw it towards the opponent. With a dull bang, the magic energy whip was destroyed into stardust by the power of the gods. It seemed that she didn't expect Peter to have this trick. Katie immediately retreated, dodged the energy ball, and summoned fog again to surround Peter. Seeing that the other party wanted to escape, Peter immediately flashed and moved to the other party's position in an instant. However, when he wanted to reach out to grab the other party, Katie's body disappeared like a mirage. Frowning, he quickly searched the entire villa, but not only did he not find Katie, even Bruce disappeared. Talent Club. Bruce and Katie escaped from the villa area and walked into this bar. This bar where he had fought before was relatively quiet, probably because it was not the peak business period. Bruce walked to the bar. The guy behind the bar was an experienced old sailor with long ears and a curved hooked nose. What would you like to drink, sir? The bartender asked him. Bruce covered his forehead and said loudly, rum, sir. What kind of rum do you need? Bruce covered his head and thought about it. What kind of rum do I want? What should I put in it? Daiquiri? Mojito? Hurricane? Painkillers? He thought for a moment and said, painkillers, I need painkillers, but then a female voice came, give him a cup of awakening tea, Dan, give him a cup of Mama Juana. Bruce raised his eyes and saw that it was the female waitress he had saved before. Bruce shook his head and dispelled the strange thoughts in his mind. With a bang, the bartender put a can on the bar, then picked up the can and poured something into the cup. It was a brown liquid, a bit like Coca-Cola, but more turbid than Coke. Bruce looked at the bartender unsatisfied and said, I need much more than this. The bartender was stunned for a moment, then took the glass away, put down a pint glass, poured the liquid into the big cup again and started to shake it quickly. Bruce looked at the woman next to him, a chubby-cheeked, green-eyed chick with uneven golden hair, some of which were tied with pink bows. Bruce took a sip. It tasted a bit like, he couldn't even tell what it tasted like. There was the caramel taste of wine and the sweetness of honey, but it also tasted like licking tree roots and a bunch of random things picked up in the woods, thistles, thorns, bark, branches, and then dumped them into the liquid in his cup. It was like birch beer saliva spit out from Satan's mouth. And he found that he liked this feeling a little. "Sir, thank you for your help before. This cup is my treat," the girl thanked Bruce. "I think you may have encountered a little trouble, but I believe that a kind person like you will always find a way to solve it." Listening to what the girl said to him, Bruce was stunned for a moment, and the expression on his face changed. The mind controlled by Katie also loosened a little. "Am I a good person?" The girl nodded. "Of course, you are a good person." Looking at the other party's serious expression, Bruce touched the pistol on his waist, and just as he was about to say something, Katie came over. Sensing Bruce's mental fluctuations, Katie looked at the girl with a gloomy look. Reaching out her hand, she grabbed the other party's arm, ready to absorb the life of this girl who made her feel disgusted. Bruce realized what Katie was going to do, and immediately pushed the girl away, then threw the drink at the bartender. "Damn rum. It tastes like horse urine." Seeing that Bruce was trying to cause trouble, the security guards in the bar immediately walked towards him. Because of Bruce's deliberate behavior, the two sides soon fought each other because of the conflict. Outside the bar, there happened to be a group of TV reporters filming the exterior. Realizing that they might find news material, the reporters immediately pointed the camera into the bar. At the same time, Zoo and Star-Lord were watching TV at home. What was broadcast on TV was a live news broadcast of a bar patron beating a security guard. Zoo stared at the blurred figure of the person who did it in the picture, and said uncertainly, "Does that look like Bruce Wayne?" Star-Lord immediately came to the TV after hearing it. Looking at the man who looked like Bruce, he scratched his head in confusion. "Yes, he looks a bit like him, but didn't Dad say that Bruce is a very rich billionaire? Why did he beat him up? Was it because he ate and free meals?" "Probably. After all, this guy is the kind of person who stirs up trouble," Zoo said with shining eyes. He stood up suddenly, staring at Bruce's figure on TV with sparkling eyes. "Very good, this guy disguised as a good guy is finally exposed." He felt that he had found a good opportunity. He could expose this guy's disguise in front of his father, and give him a good beating. After all, he was going to beat up the bar security guard now, and then he would see how he would explain to his father. Thinking of this, he picked up his coat and walked outside happily. Star-Lord saw Zoo leaving and shouted at him, "Where are you going, John?" "To uphold justice and deal with that guy." Chapter 115. Dad is shocked by a Zoo. Bang! Bruce pushed open the door and fled from the bar in a panic. Since Katie had left early, Bruce grabbed the car and rushed to the place where he had agreed to meet with her. Using the driving skills he had shown Peter on the farm before, Bruce quickly got rid of the police's pursuit. Squeak! He stepped on the brakes of the car hard, making a harsh sound of friction between the brake disc and the brake pad. Bruce got out of the car nimbly. Suddenly, he heard a bang in the air. Then he felt the ground shaking. In the blink of an eye, Bruce saw Zoo pinching his waist, lowering his head forward, and landing not far in front of him in a handsome half-kneeling posture. After landing and standing up, Zoo hugged his chest with his hands, looked at the embarrassed Bruce, and shook his head. "What a pity, our Bruce Wayne has become a robber." Zoo looked at him with a regretful expression. "Dad said that you hoped to eliminate the evil in Gotham and bring the super criminals to justice, but now it seems that Bruce, you are the real hero. Those super criminals are clowns compared to you. At least they won't be so rough and bold to rob cars." Being sarcastically scolded by Zoo, Bruce looked at him hatefully. "Did you know about Katie and Mr. Padrick?" "What?" Zoo asked in confusion. "Mr. Padrick wants to do to Katie." Before Bruce finished speaking, Zoo immediately replied, "Of course, I know everything. You know I have super hearing, right? Teacher Katie likes Dad, and they are going to get married soon." The black-bellied Zoo deliberately showed a sympathetic expression. "I know you have lost your father and mother since you were a child. In fact, I don't mind letting Dad take you in as a godson, because then you will call Katie Mom." Hearing that Zoo wanted his girlfriend to become a mother, Bruce immediately became furious. With a roar, he rushed towards Zoo fiercely. The result was of course no doubt that Zoo easily dodged his pounce. Taking advantage of the moment when Bruce lost his balance, Zoo grabbed his clothes. "You are very good at disguising yourself, Bruce. You pretend to be very brave, but in fact you are not brave at all." You are afraid and fragile. You are a person who lacks love, so you are easily deceived by others. Zhu looked at Bruce, who was breathing heavily in front of him, proudly and said to him, Dad is right. Accepting your loneliness calmly is a sign of strength. I can accept the fact that I am not popular with girls, but you can't. Being mocked by Zhu, Bruce gritted his teeth and said, No, you are the one who lacks love. You can accept that you are not popular with girls, but you will never accept that you are not loved by your parents. John, you are essentially a poor guy with a hard shell. You think you are very strong, but in fact you are fragile and vulnerable. After being counterattacked by Bruce, Zhu was a little embarrassed and angry, and threw him to the ground. As he continued to move, he suddenly felt his body out of control. The next moment, Zhu hit the wall heavily. A purple-red whip filled with magic locked him to the wall. Zhu, who was controlled by magic, looked up in the direction of Bruce with astonishment. He found that Katie Wisniewski was standing next to Bruce. Katie held the book in one hand and controlled the magic spell to lock Zhu. Zhu looked at the teacher who exuded a completely different aura from usual and was a little confused. Is this still the most popular teacher in the school? Just as Zhu was in shock, there was a whoosh sound of air fluctuations. Peter rushed to the scene, released the energy body of the god in his hand, and instantly repelled Katie Wisniewski, releasing the other party's control over Zhu. Seeing Peter chasing again, Katie Wisniewski's expression was a little ugly. You always haunt me, Padraic. Katie looked at him angrily. Do you want to break up Bruce and me? Actually, Peter shook his head and said, I have no intention of interfering in other people's love. I just want to kill you. You want to kill me? Katie sneered. I am immortal. My soul lives in this body. If you kill this body, you just killed an innocent girl. Besides, Bruce is controlled by me now. If you kill me, he will never be able to get rid of control. Katie said fearlessly, Bruce regards you as his father. You must not want to see him die, right? That's a difficult problem. Peter nodded and said. Zhu next to him was hesitant to speak. He really wanted to tell Peter that he actually thought Bruce was good like this. At least the badness is pure, and there is no need to entangle like before. It's better to leave him alone. Seeing that Peter did not take any action for the time being, Katie controlled Bruce to shoot Peter, trying to create chaos to buy time for himself to escape. Bruce held up the pistol, but he still couldn't pull the trigger like before. Facing Peter, his inner will was always resisting. No. I can't. Bruce held the gun, but he couldn't shoot the bullet at Peter. Although his mind was controlled by the other party, his heart kept telling him that he must not do this. Do it. Bruce. Subconsciously, Katie kept giving him orders. Bruce, who was tortured and sweating, kept shaking his head desperately. No. I can't do it. He is, Bruce, he is not your father. You know, your father has been dead for a long time. Katie's charming words flowed through his ears like a trickle of water. Bruce bent down in pain and half knelt on the ground. Inadvertently, his eyes glanced at Peter's right hand and found that the other party was wearing the watch he gave him. The relic left by his father was also found by the two of them when they were in the metropolis. The moment he saw the watch, Bruce suddenly felt something in his heart break free. He gritted his teeth and stood up abruptly, raised his pistol, and shot at Katie without hesitation. Bang! The bullet grazed Katie's body, scaring her. Dad? That magic book? In a hurry, Bruce shouted to Peter, take it. The moment Bruce shouted, Peter instantly came to the witch and grabbed the magic book. With his other hand, he pushed the witch out heavily. Burn it, sir, Bruce shouted to Peter while enduring the pain of magic backlash. Peter glanced at Bruce, and the flames composed of the energy of the gods instantly rose in his hands. Seeing the magic book being burned, Katie screamed in pain. No, as the magic book was burned to ashes, Katie Wisniewski fell to the ground and fell into coma. Bruce also knelt on the ground with sweat all over his head, gasping for breath. Zhu next to him was a little confused. Just now, Bruce seemed to have called Peter Dad? How is it? Can you stand up, Bruce? Peter came over and held out his hand to him. I'm fine, sir. Bruce grabbed Peter's hand and stood up. Sorry, sir, I've caused you trouble again. You didn't cause me trouble, Bruce. You caused yourself pain, and your first love ended in vain. Peter patted Bruce's shoulder and said. Bruce took a deep breath. Maybe John is right. When you are vulnerable and longing for love, it is easier to fall into a trap. I may not need love for the time being. Can someone help me? Where am I? Katie covered her head and asked a few people confusedly after waking up from a coma. The next day, Early in the morning, Peter saw Bruce off at Smallville Station. "Are you sure you don't want to stay a few more days?" Peter said to the other party. "You are mentally exhausted. I think you should rest more." "I'm fine, sir, although I am a little drowsy now. It should be because I slept for a long time. I swear, I slept the most peaceful sleep last night." Bruce apologized to Peter a little embarrassedly. "Sorry, sir, I have caused you so much trouble. If I hadn't had any thoughts about Teacher Katie at the beginning, these things would not have happened." Peter looked at him and said, "No, Bruce, there are some things you can't control. Just remember, don't be easily overwhelmed by love." Bruce nodded. "I know, sir, and I also understand the true meaning of loneliness. Don't crave love for no reason. Don't be afraid of life, and accept the loneliness in your heart calmly. This is the real strength, sir. I will wander alone in the world for a while next." He hugged Peter. "I hope to see you again when I return home, sir." Peter and the other party hugged and then separated. He didn't expect that after this incident, this kid would see it. Although it is a good thing to accept loneliness, I hope that the future Batman will not be disappointed with a relationship between men and women and become a man who is not close to women. Otherwise, the future second generation of Batman will disappear in the dust of history. "Okay, the car is starting, let's go." Peter looked at the bus that was about to start, indicating that he should go. Bruce, carrying the package, looked at Peter and turned to leave. As the bus started, Bruce's expression gradually became complicated. Looking at the road ahead, he exhaled, and there was a hint of determination in his eyes. After watching Bruce leave, Peter prepared to drive back. A car drove into the station, and a group of people dressed in strange circus costumes attracted his attention. "Is there going to be a circus performance in the town?" Peter looked at the clowns and other members of the circus and fell into thought. "Thank you for your votes, and thank book friend tail number 0258 inches and dyed black whitebird for the rewards. I hope readers are happy every day. I recommend a classic American comic book written by a friend, What Bad Thoughts Can Batman Have? The link is here, you can check it out if you are interested. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 116 Use Kryptonite on Me. I think you should explain it to me, John. After returning from the station, Peter decided to talk to Zoo. This morning, when I was driving Bruce to the station, I saw Evelyn Blake. Evelyn Blake was a neighbor nearby, and she often had a cigarette between her fingers. Peter looked at Zoo, who was a little nervous, and said in a leisurely tone, "I saw her smoking in the 8-acre yard with high fences and pink creepers, and you were there, I guess, John. She was inviting you to smoke, right?" As for Zoo, a naughty child who might be addicted to smoking at such a young age, he felt that he should nip it in the bud. "No, Dad, I don't smoke." Zoo quickly denied it. He knew that if he admitted to smoking, he would definitely be whipped by his father. "Ms. Black just asked me if I wanted one." Peter frowned. "Really? What did she say?" "She said that if she didn't pass me the cigarette, she would violate the Smoker's Code, which was established in the late 19th century by Mr. Smokey von Smakington and his wife Esmeralda Cancerface. They declared that smokers should share cigarettes like friendly little monkeys when smoking." Zoo described the scene at that time. "Then she passed the cigarette to me, but I didn't want it, Dad. I won't touch drugs and smoking," Zoo vowed. "I won't become the kind of person who is easily addicted." "Don't you like milk?" Star-Lord next to him added. "No. How can cigarettes be the same as milk?" Zoo glared at Star-Lord and immediately felt that this guy was extremely annoying. He was almost as annoying as Bruce Wayne. But Bruce has traveled around the world, why doesn't Star-Lord go to outer space? "No matter what, you can't smoke at your age," Peter warned the two. "If I find out, I will cancel all your pocket money and send you to a support group." The serious consequences Peter mentioned made the two shudder. "Of course, Dad, I won't." Zoo immediately expressed his loyalty. "I think, Dad, you should pay more attention to Star-Lord's addiction problem." He took the opportunity to change the topic to Star-Lord. "Star-Lord ate a supersized sandwich spread before you came over. He tore open the bag of pretzels, put the pretzels into the sandwich spread, and started eating it." Zoo said to Peter in a seemingly sincere tone, "Dad, I think you should supervise him and not let Star-Lord eat these things that will make him fat." Before he could say anything, Star-Lord next to him immediately became angry and said, "This is my hobby." Seeing that Azu was so unethical, Star-Lord also informed Peter, "Dad, Azu secretly went to milk and drink milk when you were away yesterday." Azu immediately defended, "I just want to do farm work to earn pocket money. The work that Dad said can earn pocket money does not include these." "Admit it, John, you just like to drink milk, and the fresher the better." Being attacked by Star-Lord, Azu puffed up his cheeks and took a deep breath. "Okay, I admit that I did it, but look at what you did. You took $10. I don't know if you stole Dad's money and went to South Street to find someone to tell your fortune." Seeing that Zu had also revealed what he had done secretly, Star-Lord immediately looked at Peter, whose face was getting worse and worse, with a guilty conscience. He took a deep breath. Since the other party was going to tell his secret in front of his father, Star-Lord felt that he could no longer endure it. "What about the magazine under your bed? Which has many movie actresses on it, and each of them is very sexy." Hearing Star-Lord reveal the biggest secret under his bed, Zu's heart slipped and he quickly explained to Peter, "No. I don't know what it is. I have never had such a magazine. Dad, Star-Lord must have hidden it secretly. He likes this kind of thing." Zu immediately showed an innocent look and continued in a hurried tone, "Or Clark did it? You know that last time he had an attack, he bought a lot of things at Eddie's low-price store." Peter looked at him unkindly. "You mean, Clark secretly hid the book under your bed?" Yes, but aren't you and Clark in a Cold War?" Zu was immediately speechless. 5 minutes later, Peter stood in Zu's room, looking at the magazine in his hand. The magazine didn't have any explicit content. Although it wasn't 18+, the mature female stars in sexy clothes on it didn't look like a magazine that a naughty kid like Zu could have. Peter frowned. He remembered that this kid liked mature women in his previous life, and now it seems that he still has this hobby. "I think, John, you'd better explain it to me." Peter put the magazine away and said to him with a serious expression. Looking at Peter's serious face, Zu knew that he couldn't fool around, and said with a bitter face, "I stole it from Whitney." "You stole his things? He often steals other students' things. I wanted to take it back and give it back to that classmate, but I just didn't have time." "Huh?" Peter stared at him with an expression that said, "You keep making up stories." "I'm listening." Exhaling, Zu looked around helplessly. He knew that he was probably going to be beaten. In the evening, Zu and Star-Lord were carrying things on the farm. Both of them were hit on the buttocks to varying degrees by Peter. After telling each other about it, the two of them now looked at each other with dislike. While carrying the crops, Zu was thinking about how to take revenge on Star-Lord when Clark walked into the farm. "Okay, here comes Clark, who claims to inherit Patrick's farm." Zu was upset because of what happened today, and immediately mocked Clark when he saw him come in. "Sorry, John, I apologize to you, I was not myself at that time." Clark's expression froze, and he apologized to Zu for the red kryptonite. "You don't have to apologize, Clark, because," Zu put down the crops in his hand, walked to Clark and said to him, "because that is what you really think deep in your heart. You said you don't care about anything, but in fact you care more than anyone else." Zu shrugged at Clark, "But whatever, we are not friends now." At night, Clark had dinner on the farm, but because of the conflicts among the three naughty children, they didn't talk to each other, resulting in a rather cold atmosphere at the table. After dinner, Zu and Star-Lord went upstairs, and Peter stopped Clark. "Clark, are you worried about something?" Clark nodded and said dejectedly, "Maybe because what I said before hurt John, so he ignores me now. Actually, he knows that's not the real you." "Clark," Peter comforted Clark, "it's just that John needs some time to forget these things that make him unhappy. John is not angry with me anymore, of course. As a father I understand him." Peter patted Clark on the shoulder. "Time will dissipate all emotions." "Clark, really?" Clark asked with a blink. "Of course it's true, that." After listening to Peter's explanation, Clark felt better. After hesitating for a moment, he continued to ask Peter, "Godfather, when I wore the red kryptonite, I awakened the same ability as Zu. Will I be able to fly like Zu in the future?" Peter's eyebrows moved and asked him, "You mean thermal vision?" "Yes, thermal vision. I don't know why I suddenly have this ability. It seems to appear naturally," Clark said confusedly. "Dad said that I came to Earth with a certain mission. Now this ability seems to be gradually awakening. Godfather, I even often dream at night that someone is calling me. He calls me Carl." Clark didn't know what this meant to him. Peter listened to Clark's story and frowned slightly. "Is Clark awakening his Kryptonian blood?" That spaceship, hidden under the Kent family's barn, the spaceship that brought Clark to Earth, is gradually influencing and awakening Clark's blood? Godfather, what does Carl mean? Is it really my name? Clark asked Peter in confusion. In some ancient text, Carl means star. Peter thought for a moment and explained to him. Star? Clark repeated the word, star. Does it mean I am a star? But I am not a star. I am just an ordinary boy on a farm in Kansas, and I am not interested in stars. Clark spoke his inner thoughts. He looked out at the dark night. I was interested in the outside world before, but now it seems too strange to me. Dangers like red kryptonite are everywhere in this world, right? As he spoke, he cast his gaze at Peter. I am afraid of hurting you, Godfather. If I have to take on something and the cost is to hurt you, I would rather not have this mission. Looking at Clark's confused and seemingly determined eyes, Peter was slightly touched. He touched Clark's head. No, Clark, you don't have to shoulder anything now. What if my ability really hurts you in the future? I'm afraid of that happening. Clark took a deep breath and said to Peter, Godfather, next time if I hurt you like red kryptonite did this time, use kryptonite on me. Even if I die, I don't want this to happen. Chapter 117 Clark awakens his heat vision and his mind is not right. The next day, early in the morning. As soon as Zug got up and walked out the door, he saw Clark standing in the open space of the farm. Not far in front of him was a dummy. Seeing Clark staring at the dummy without blinking, Zug was a little confused. What are you doing, Clark? I'm practicing thermal vision, Clark said seriously. When I put on the ruby ring before, the thermal vision ability of my eyes was activated. Now, the Godfather asked me to practice on the dummy to see if I can reactivate it. Zug nodded. So, you just watch. He thought this method was a bit stupid. The Godfather also asked me to imagine something angry, or other abilities that can stimulate my emotions, Clark said, shaking his head helplessly. But I watched for an hour, and it still didn't work. Really? Zug thought for a while. I have a way. As he said that, he walked into the house. Although he was still a little angry with Clark, he was much less angry now. Not long after, Zug sneaked out of the house. After confirming once again that Peter was not at home and that Star-Lord had not noticed him, Zug took out a magazine that Peter had taken away yesterday from his arms. Maybe you can try this. Zug stuffed the magazine to him. Curiously, Clark took the magazine, took a look at the hot pictures on it, and handed it to Zug a little embarrassedly. I don't think these will work. You haven't tried it yet. How do you know it won't work? Clark said a little unnaturally. This doesn't make my emotions fluctuate greatly. Really? After hearing Clark's explanation, Zug had to put the magazine away and prepare to secretly put it back in Peter's room later. Before leaving, he thought about it and said to Clark, maybe you can imagine it as Lana. After Zug left, Clark half-believed and half-doubtedly imagined the dummy in front of him as Lana. Staring at the whole body of Lana transformed by the dummy, Clark's eyes focused on it. The next second, the thermal vision suddenly came out, and shot at the dummy with a sizzle. Sizzle, the dummy pierced by the heat vision immediately caught fire. I succeeded. Clark looked at his hands in disbelief, and was immediately overjoyed. Lana really works. On the other side, Zug, who secretly put the magazine in Peter's room, just went downstairs and saw Star-Lord in a living room. Feeling a little guilty, he asked Star-Lord, what are you doing? Watching TV. The TV station said that there is a circus performing in the town. Star-Lord said with shining eyes, I have to go and see, maybe I can learn a trick from the magician inside. When Star-Lord thought of seeing a wonderful magic show, he couldn't wait. Magic show? Zug shook his head. He had no interest in this kind of magic show. Talent Club. Peter made an appointment with Officer Chandler for a drink. To be honest, I prefer the hot bars in Metropolis. Do you know what kind of bar it is? Chandler asked Peter. What kind? Peter asked curiously. He did have a bar in Metropolis, the one Bruce gave him. Everything is dazzling, the star-studded, neon-lit bar, Chandler said, a little drunkenly. There are women in super short skirts and big, round fake breasts, showing off their hips and legs, and then there are those gay guys, those shining guys, walking around in huge high heels, their mesh shirts making swish sounds with their movements, wearing heart-shaped sunglasses, and dancing to the explosive music with their werewolf-like nails. Oh, Peter listened to him and replied, you really have a heavy taste. That's nothing. If you go to a bar in Miami, you'll see more exciting things than what I just said. Okay, Peter interrupted him and asked him, how did you deal with Teacher Katie's case? He now wanted to know the outcome of this female teacher who was possessed by a witch. After a pause, Chandler said, she said she had no idea what she had done, and that a demon had taken over her body. We did a mental evaluation on her, and preliminarily determined that she might have split personality. Anyway, she has some mental problems. Officer Chandler drank the vodka in one breath, and put down a glass with a slice of lime on the edge and bubbles. She also mentioned you. Oh? What did she say about me? She said you can prove her innocence. Hearing that Katie wanted to prove it for her, Peter was stunned, then shook his head. No, in fact, I don't know more than the police, so forget about the proof. He was not interested in participating in such a troublesome matter that had nothing to do with him. Besides, how could he prove it? Tell the Smallville Police Department that everything was caused by the witch's possession. Okay, whatever you want. Chandler handed a document to the other party while drinking. I also helped you investigate the Elizabeth Parrs you mentioned. He told Peter the information he had found. In the 17th century, she was a distinguished lady in this town, but it was said that she was addicted to black magic and was involved in the disappearance of children in the town. She was finally arrested by the sheriff at the time, along with 2 other women. All 3 women were burned at the stake, but when they were burned by the flames, they shouted that they would definitely come back. After listening to Chandler's story, Peter nodded. 3 witches, yes, Madeleine Evans, Brianna Wade, and Elizabeth Parrs, but after hundreds of years, there has been no news of these women's resurrection. It seems that they will never be resurrected. That's not necessarily true. Peter shook his head and took a sip of the wine glass. Seeing that Peter stopped talking, Chandler took the wine glass and continued to taste the whiskey. Uncle Patrick, do you need anything else? Peter was thinking about something when a familiar voice came. He looked up and saw that it was Lana holding a tray and smiling at him. Lana, Peter looked at her and asked in surprise, why are you here? Aunt Neil also has shares in this bar, so I come over to help, especially when there are more customers. Lana skillfully put away the beer glasses on the next table and said to him, Aunt Neil said I need to practice social activities, and I think it makes sense. Peter nodded. Really? I remember hearing Clark say that you are not a cheerleader. Do you still have time to help in the bar? Actually, I have quit the cheerleading team. Lana smiled at him and did not continue talking about the topic of cheerleading. Instead, she said to him, Mr. Patrick, would you like a beer? The Talon Club is holding a buy a glass, get a free event. Regular customers like you should be able to buy 1 and get 2 free. Oh, then have a glass. Peter asked her casually, how is Neil lately? Aunt is fine, but she's been a little busy lately. She's busy with the horse farm and Talon. After talking to Peter for a few words, Lana walked towards the kitchen with a wine tray. As a result, just as she stood up, she bumped into a customer who was walking by because of her lack of concentration. The tall and strong customer knocked Lana to the ground. With a bang, the wine on the tray in Lana's hand poured onto the other person's clothes, and the glass fell off the tray and made a clear shattering sound when it fell to the ground. Startled, Lana quickly apologized to the other person. Sorry, sir, I didn't mean it. She quickly picked up a tissue and prepared to wipe the wine spilled on the other person. Don't you have eyes when you walk? The man in khaki pants, who looked like a street fighter, glared at Lana fiercely. Do you know how much this dress of mine costs? This is my new one, $1,000. Looking at Lana, who was at a loss, the street fighter took a step closer to her. Washing clothes will also cost a lot. See how much you can compensate. Hearing that the other party wanted her to compensate, the helpless look on Lana's face became even stronger. She nervously apologized to the other party in a low voice. Sir, I'm really sorry. Seeing that Lana seemed to want to explain, the street activist impatiently reached out to grab Lana's hand. Frightened Lana did not make any reaction, just staring blankly at the other party's hand grabbing her. However, the thing that scared her did not happen. Peter grabbed the other party's hand. Do you want to show off to little girl? Peter held the other party's wrist and kept exerting force. The street activist's brows were squeezed together in pain, and sweat instantly covered his forehead. Let go. The street activist made a painful sound because Peter kept exerting force on his wrist. Peter loosened his grip on the other party's hand and pushed the other party forward. Bang! The staggering street activist hit his back heavily against the wall, and a burst of pain came out. He was about to explode in anger, but Peter turned to Chandler and said, Officer Chandler, I don't think you mind handing this guy to the police station after work, right? Chandler stood up and showed his police ID to the stunned street thug. Seeing the police appear, the street thug immediately admitted his weakness, said a few soft words and quickly fled the bar. "Are you okay, Lana?" After driving the street thug away, Peter bent down to help her pick up the glass on the ground. "No, thank you, Uncle Patrick," Lana thanked Peter gratefully. "You're welcome." After replying casually, Peter's eyes suddenly caught a strange tattoo mark on Lana's arm. His brows immediately frowned. Chapter 118 Zatanna, the circus's chief magician. Lana felt a little uneasy when she saw Peter staring at her. Realizing that he was being a little rude, Peter quickly looked away, coughed and said to the other party, "When you work part-time at the bar, it's best if your Aunt Nella's by your side, otherwise you will encounter such troubles." "Okay, thank you, Uncle Patrick," Lana thanked Peter again and again, and left with a tray. Peter watched Lana's back as she left, and fell into thought. The mark on Lana's hand was exactly the same as the one he saw on Teacher Katie. Teacher Katie was the descendant of the witch Elizabeth. Could it be that Lana was also one of the 3 descendants of witches who were burned to death? Sitting back at the bar, he picked up the glass and tasted the mellow beer in the glass. Lana is Clark's dream goddess. It seems that he has to pay more attention to her movements in the future. If Lana is possessed by a witch, Clark will be in trouble. Patrick Farm. "Dad, can I watch the circus?" Star-Lord asked expectantly. "Tomorrow there will be a circus performance, with clowns, various magical animals, and magic shows." Star-Lord said that he would go to see the magic show even if he didn't sleep. "Magic show?" Peter pretended to think seriously. "Dad thinks I can show you one, like the card-counting magic that Dad showed you last time." "What do you think, Star-Lord?" Star-Lord said with a bitter face. "Dad, you performed very well, but he is a professional. I heard that this is a very magical magician who can turn pigeons into teddy bears." "Really?" Peter rubbed his chin and looked at Clark and Zoo. "Do you want to go too?" Zoo was watching TV. After hearing the question, he turned around and said, "I don't care, Dad, I'll go wherever you go." Clark thought for a while and said, "Godfather, I want to go too." "Aren't you practicing your thermal vision?" Peter asked him. "Did you succeed?" "Halfway to success," Clark said with some pride, and said he would show it to Peter. At the dining table, Clark took a deep breath and aimed at the corn wrapped in tin foil. As his hot sight burned on it, the tin foil was heated and slowly expanded. "Very good, Clark, how did you do it?" Without waiting for Clark to answer, Zoo said beside him, "Dad, he can spit fire when he thinks of Lana. This should be what you said about the heat of love melting everything." Bang! As Zoo spoke, Clark was so excited that he didn't control the strength well, and directly turned the roasted corn into fried popcorn. "Not bad." Peter pretended to be indifferent and picked up a popcorn and put it in his mouth. "It seems that you are not good at controlling the heat, Clark. Remember to keep your emotions stable next time, Clark." The next day, at night, after Star-Lord's long wait for a day, the circus performance finally began. Peter brought Star-Lord, Zoo and Clark to the scene. After the zombie incident, the auditorium was renovated and restored to its former glory. When Peter and his friends arrived, it was already crowded. Amid the noisy voices, several people walked towards the seats they had reserved in advance. On the way, he met many familiar faces, such as Neil and Lana, Officer Ryan, Officer Chandler, Teacher Martha McKinner and others. After exchanging a few words with everyone, Peter walked to the reserved seat and sat down, quietly waiting for the performance to begin. On the other side, in the circus, the young girl Zatanna Zatara, who was resting backstage, was ready to take a nap. Sitting in front of the mirror, she lowered her head and fell asleep. "Get up," the voice of her father calling her to get up suddenly sounded. She looked up suddenly and saw her father pushing the door and walking in. "Dad, little lazy pig can't be lazy in bed, it's already 5 o'clock in the morning." Zatanna's father came over and rubbed his sleepy daughter's hair. Zatanna, with long black hair, said to her father a little depressed, "Dad, why is it so important? Why do I have to learn these?" "Learn to speak backwards?" She was a little tired of practicing speaking backwards every day. For example, her father just called her to get up and spoke backwards. Every morning at 5 o'clock, her father would wake her up with a simple command. Then Zatanna would obey without a second thought, like a magic trick. As the sun rose, she would continue to receive her father's training. For example, she would free herself from a straitjacket, or practice counting cards. When she practiced, her father would only give her the instructions in reverse and ask her to repeat them. For example, When she picked up a lock, she could only whisper "lock open." When she drew the ace from the whole deck, she could only say "I give you the ace of the card, Dad." "I don't understand." Zatanna rubbed her eyes, revealing her pink pajamas on the upper body, and asked her father, "Do I have to say it in reverse? Do you want to give up the best stage machine since Houdini?" Her father smiled and sat down on the bed and said to her jokingly, "No, Dad, I don't understand. I can feel the thick magic in the air. Right now, I can feel it around me. I know I can touch it with my hand." Although the Zatara family has been performing magic for generations, she knows that magic is just a cover. The people of the Zatara family are proficient in magic. They are real great magicians. Zatanna asked her father in confusion, "Dad, I saw your eyes and I can see how scared you are. I can master magic now, but why are you so scared?" Zatanna's father was stunned for a moment, then slowly stood up. "Of course, you are right, my little zebra. As long as we want, we can extract pure magic from the air around us to change the laws of nature, but," he paused and said to his daughter, "but that energy comes from somewhere and will definitely go somewhere. Magicians like us can harness and control this energy in an orderly manner. Our family uses language to control it." As he said this, he raised his hand and chanted the spell "Firefly into Doll." As the spell was chanted, the doll on Zatanna's bed turned into a firefly and flew into the sky. Looking at the fireflies flying in the sky with a faint light, the father stretched out his hand and let the fireflies fall on his fingers. Other families may use artifacts, potions, or even demon blood, something powerful enough to resist that price. He looked at his daughter's thoughtful eyes and continued, "You know, Zatanna, magic is dangerous. The more powerful the magic, the more painful it comes with. We try our best to protect ourselves, but we are mortals after all." Zatanna blinked and watched the fireflies turn into dolls and fall on her bed. No matter what method is used, magic is the same after all. Irony magic, spells, boiling dry pots, it's just a little trick, dear, it's just a little trick, it's a misleading. Zatanna's father said to him earnestly, "Only in this way can they not see what we do." "They?" Zatanna asked her father in confusion. "Who are they, Dad?" She could feel that her father had always been afraid of something, those terrible things lurking in the dark, making her father cover up his existence and dare not expose it. "Who are they?" Zatanna's father looked at the rising sun outside the window. "The most powerful magician in history has given it many names. It is the abyss, it is the dark world, it is the great darkness, and in whispers, magicians talk about its nature." Zatanna listened to her father's story with a frown. She seemed to be able to sense the existence of a whisper in the darkness, spying on all of them. Just as she was about to ask her father something else, the room suddenly became dark and her father disappeared. She wanted to stand up, but the next second she saw countless black and sticky tentacles rushing towards her. "Huh?" Zatanna leaned back and raised her head suddenly waking up from her dream. Panting slightly, looking at herself in the mirror, she swallowed a mouthful of saliva and wiped the fine beads of sweat on her forehead. The girl in the mirror was 15 or 16 years old, with thick black hair, a delicate and heroic face, a tight white dress that outlined her developed figure on the upper body, and a black evening dress on the lower body. Knock. 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 There was a knock on the door. Zatanna turned her eyes away from the mirror and stood up. "Are you okay, Zatanna?" The head of the performance saw that Zatanna was not in a good mental state and asked her with concern. "I'm fine. I just took a nap and dreamed about some things in the past. I'll be fine in a while. I can adjust myself." "Very good, the performance will start soon. Keep in good condition." After giving a few instructions to Zatanna, the head walked out of the room. After the head left, Zatanna took out a necklace from her evening dress. With a click, the necklace opened, revealing the photo inside. Looking at her father in the photo, her expression became complicated. Since her father disappeared, she has been traveling around the world to find his traces. At the same time, in order to make a living, she is active on the stage as a stage magician. "I don't know when my wandering life will end." She closed the necklace, looked at herself in the mirror, and turned to the stage. The curtain of the auditorium was drawn, and the lights of the entire scene dimmed. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are the Great Funny Circus. Next, you will see the most incredible performance." As the host spoke passionately, the stage curtain slowly opened. "The first one to come on stage is our stage magician, Zatanna Fassbender." Hearing the magician's name, Peter suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. Chapter 119, a great performance, but a bit useless. Thank you very much for coming. I am a stage magician." Zatanna stood on the stage and smiled at the audience. "Tonight, I will not only be a performer, but also a guide for your dreams to come true. As long as you keep a curious and open mind, miracles will happen between us." As she spoke, she bowed slightly to the crowd and took off her hat. Wow! The moment the hat was taken off, countless pigeons flew out of it. Amid the applause of the audience, Zatanna picked up the hat and said, "Thank you very much for your applause. Next, I will conjure a rabbit in the hat for everyone." As she spoke, she sat on a chair and put her fingers into the hat. Clark and Zoo in the audience watched Zatanna's actions intently, trying to see how she did it. Zatanna on the stage silently chanted, "The rabbit shows the inner hat." As she chanted the anti-speech magic spell, a white rabbit quietly appeared in the hat. Zatanna grabbed the rabbit's ears and pulled the rabbit out of the hat. As a result, when she looked at the rabbit in her hand, she was stunned for a moment. What she was holding in her hand was actually a rabbit with blood coming out of all its orifices. The rabbit's eyes were wide open, as if it had suffered great pain before death, and blood was dripping down its hind legs onto the stage. Oh my god! Zatanna looked at the dead rabbit in her hand in shock, and was a little overwhelmed for a moment. She didn't know where her magic had gone wrong. The audience thought it was a performance effect, and all applauded enthusiastically, with some whistles mixed in the applause to stir up the atmosphere. Zatanna was shocked and looked down into the hat, and what she saw was a purple magical energy with a dangerous aura, which was condensing inside. "No!" As she shouted in fear, black and sticky tentacles with tumors on the surface rushed out of the hat crazily. The dense tentacles were like a tide, waving in all directions. The audience thought this was part of the stage performance. Seeing the grand magic show in front of them, the applause became even more enthusiastic. They dared to guarantee that they had never seen magic with such a strong visual impact. Zatanna, who was brought back to her senses by the applause and cheers, shouted to the crowd in the audience, "This is not part of the performance, get out of here." Before the audience could react, a thick tentacle grabbed a male audience member and pulled him to the stage. With a bang, the unlucky guy who was caught fell heavily on the stage. He groaned, and his body was instantly entangled by more and more tentacles. The sudden change made the audience stunned for a few seconds. At this moment, everyone realized that the tentacles in front of them were not a magic show. With a shrill scream from the crowd, everyone on the scene immediately left their seats and fled in all directions. The originally peaceful auditorium suddenly became a mess. Screams and shouts of fear echoed in the auditorium. When Peter saw the tentacles dragging people onto the stage, he immediately stood up and his expression became serious. As he looked at the tentacles waving on the stage in surprise, and asked Peter in disbelief, "Dad, what is that?" Star-Lord also found it incredible. "What kind of magic is this? Not only can a rabbit appear from a hat, but there are also tentacles. This thing doesn't look like an ordinary magic show." Peter looked at the tentacles waving on the stage, exuding a strange atmosphere. "Godfather, I think we should help her." Clark looked at the stage and said anxiously. Although he didn't know the girl on the stage, judging from the expression on the girl's face, these tentacles should be uncontrollable. Peter glanced at the tentacles waving on the stage and said to Azu, "John, take Clark and Star-Lord away from here." He asked Azu to take Clark and Star-Lord away from here. Although Clark was a little reluctant, he knew that the Godfather must have his own ideas, and finally followed Azu to leave the auditorium. Oh my god, the unlucky audience entangled by the tentacles grabbed the floor hard, and his fingers scratched bloody marks on the wooden stage. No. No, he struggled hard, making a sound of pain, but was still being pulled towards the magic hat. Zatanna looked at the terrible things in front of her in shock, and her heart was in a mess. Oh my god. I don't know what to do. She was a little at a loss. She was still a minor and had never encountered such an emergency. Looking at the chaotic stage, she wanted to do something, but found that her head was a mess and she couldn't think of any way. At this moment, there was a boom. A ball of white energy rushed over from the audience and instantly melted the tentacles that were grabbing the audience. The unlucky audience who was saved was thrown to the floor, and after a dull bang sound, he fainted directly. Zatanna looked at the audience with astonishment. Who is this man? Peter slowly put his hand down, and when he saw the other tentacles on the stage swinging towards him, he directly used the power of the gods in his body to condense energy. Buzz! With a strange buzzing sound of energy, his hands were covered by a stream of energy. With a puff. After cutting off the attacking tentacles, Peter moved to the stage at lightning speed. Zatanna looked at Peter in shock. How could the other party cut off these tentacles filled with evil magic without any effort? Without considering the powerful mysterious figure who suddenly jumped out, Zatanna calmed down. She took out a lighter and pointed it at the tentacles with gritted teeth. "Burn, bastard," as she recited the irony magic. The flame of the lighter turned into a fire dragon and swept towards the tentacles. The tentacles were instantly ignited by the fire dragon. The air was immediately filled with the smell of burnt meat. The next second, a sudden change occurred. A tentacle burning in the flames quickly pulled Zatanna's arm. Enduring the severe pain in her body, Zatanna covered her arm and knelt on the ground gasping for breath. After an unknown amount of time, she saw a pair of leather shoes appear in front of her. Looking up, it was the powerful mysterious man who had just dealt with the tentacles, standing in front of her. Peter's mind moved slightly, and the power of the gods covered by his hands disappeared into his body. He looked down at the somewhat embarrassed magic girl and shook his head in disappointment. He was still looking forward to her pretending to cut a person in two and then put them back together. "Are you okay?" Peter asked her. When he announced the show just now, he heard that the other party was called Zatanna. Although the last name was different, he quickly connected the other party with a great magician in the DC world. Zatanna was stunned for a moment, looked up at the tentacles that had turned to ashes, and then looked at Peter with a calm expression, and slowly stood up from the ground. "I'm fine, thank you." "Thank you." Zatanna looked at the empty audience seats below the stage and exhaled a breath of relief. She wanted to ask Peter how he did it just now, but she felt that it was too presumptuous. "Your magic show was good, and you almost killed everyone in the theater." Hearing Peter's teasing, Zatanna's face turned red instantly. "I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but it's not my intention," she explained to Peter. "I've performed these magics before, magic, and there has never been a situation like today." She suspected that someone had moved her props, and it was most likely someone close to her. But there should be no other magicians in the entire circus, and they couldn't know that she was a magician. "Well, whether it's magic or magic, it's dangerous and difficult to control. It seems that your performance is not mature enough." After saying a few words with a hint of meaning, Peter turned and left. Zatanna watched Peter's back as he left, and couldn't help but want to ask his name. She always felt that this mysterious and powerful gentleman in front of her seemed to have seen all her secrets. But looking at the mess on the ground and the audience who was knocked unconscious by the tentacles on the stage, she didn't call Peter in the end, but covered her aching arm. She is now in such a big trouble, I'm afraid it's impossible for her to stay in the circus. The most important thing now is to consider the next life. At night, Padrick Farm. Star-Lord was not very interested because he didn't see the magic show. "To be honest, I don't quite understand why the hat would produce tentacles that attack people," Star-Lord asked Peter in confusion. "Dad, how did that magician named Zatanna do it? Maybe her magic went wrong," Peter casually said to Star-Lord. There are many cases where magicians fail on stage, but Star-Lord felt that what Peter said was not right. Even if she fails so much, it is impossible to produce tentacles, right? Unless, before he finished speaking, Zoo next to him added, unless she is not a magician, but a female magician, just like Teacher Katie that Dad met before, witches and the like, although incredible, always exist. Maybe she is a witch. Zoo was relatively calm about this kind of thing. After experiencing the Lucifer incident and the Teacher Katie's witch possession incident some time ago, he had enough acceptance of these things. Not to mention witches, even if God appeared in front of him tomorrow, he would not be too surprised. "Dad," Star-Lord blinked and looked at Peter expectantly, "can you make tentacles appear from your hat?" "No, I can't." Peter shook his head and said, "I don't think any normal magician can do that." "Oh," Star-Lord sighed and said a little frustrated, "I think this trick is pretty cool, and I want to learn from her." Chapter 120, Star-Lord's first victim of dancing. The next day, Zoo, Star-Lord and Clark were shopping in the supermarket. "I hate the cashier here," Azu complained about the cashier in the supermarket to the two of them. "Her accent is weird." Dad said it's a New Jersey accent. "She can't distinguish between flat and retroflex tongue, and can't make velar nasal sounds. For example, she says water as marrow and coffee as coffee ash, while picking up a can of mung beans." Azu looked at the cashier. "I think the cashier should be articulate. Besides, she's a little fat, and her huge sunglasses remind me of the eyes of a mantis." "Star-Lord, I think she's the same as you, and she can't control her mouth." Star-Lord put down the sharp cookies he wanted to buy, and said to Azu unhappily, It sounds like you're deliberately making trouble. Azu forced a far-fetched smile. Did I? That's not my intention. You know what? John, you're also a person who can't control your mouth. Of course I can, but sometimes I have some special hobbies. Star-Lord shook his head and said to him, when you were secretly drinking milk, you were a little perverted. Azu's eyes tightened into a slit. Star-Lord, you do have a very eloquent mouth. Some people say that I'm actually quite dumb with my mouth. 3 people stood in the queue, and as the two talked, the queue became longer and longer. You think you're funny? Zu was thinking about how to get angry at Star-Lord because of the magazine, but he didn't expect the other party to take the initiative to provoke him. He felt that he had to show his authority as the eldest brother. I will beat you, the snitch, to the ground. Zu's mouth corners twisted stiffly, showing a kind of clumsy imitation of human smile. Clark next to him originally wanted to persuade the two, but after hearing Zu say the word snitch, he stopped his action in embarrassment. Oh, you can try. Star-Lord looked at the people in the supermarket and said fearlessly. Zu looked around and was about to say something when he suddenly saw a familiar figure walking into the supermarket. The other party's unique temperament quickly allowed Zu to recognize that it was the girl who performed magic but caused chaos with tentacles when she accompanied her father to watch the circus yesterday. Zatanna didn't notice the 2 people who were on the verge of a fight. She walked into the supermarket to buy some things. After the chaos yesterday, she chose to leave the circus directly and prepare to leave the town as soon as possible. Picking the goods, she walked to the shelf selling toys. On the shelf, there were various holiday gifts and birthday gifts. Zatanna carried her school bag and looked at a crystal ball on the shelf. Picking up the crystal ball, she leaned in to look at the lifelike magic castle inside. She used to have such a crystal ball with a similar magic castle inside. Before she left home, she often imagined that her mother lived in the castle and pretended that she had not died yet. Okay, she shook her head and prepared to put the crystal ball on it, and at the same time complained to herself, this behavior is a bit stupid. I wonder what happened to the crystal ball before. While holding the crystal ball, she accidentally saw through the reflection that several sneaky guys in black clothes entered the supermarket. She was alert to the maximum and quickly put the crystal ball on the shelf. She could feel that the strong men who entered the supermarket were obviously here for her. Because after these people came in, they walked straight towards her and kept their eyes on her. Zatanna immediately hid herself to prevent the other party from finding her. But as the strong men gradually searched over, Zatanna's hiding place was about to be discovered. Damn it! Realizing that the situation was not good, Zatanna immediately took out the top hat her father left for her from her backpack. Keep calm, just like the magic you performed on the stage before. Zatanna cheered herself up and put her father's top hat on her head. She took out a lighter and held it in her hand, ready to deal with this group of unknown guys like those tentacles when the other party came closer. My father taught me all those magic tricks of smoke and mirrors, or making pancakes disappear. How to use these magic tricks to defeat the enemy, I'm not good at it. Zatanna complained that she was not good at fighting, and held her breath nervously. Duh. The strong man walked towards her, and as his footsteps got closer and closer, she raised the lighter. However, she didn't expect that the strong man had a gun in his hand. The first time the two sides met, the strong man raised a gun at Zatanna. Zatanna could smell the sweat and gun smell on the man. Everything was clear. The other party was a fanatical, real, powerful radical. Without hesitation, Zatanna immediately released fire magic at the other party. Burn. As she chanted the irony magic, a powerful flame instantly emerged from the lighter and attacked the other party. The gunman reacted quickly and immediately stepped back and pulled the trigger. With a bang of bullets shooting, the whole noisy supermarket suddenly became quiet. Screams, restlessness, and riots occurred in the supermarket instantly. Customers who thought it was a $0 purchase quickly fled outside. Zatanna was not shot, but the gunman's luck was not very good. Although he dodged backwards, he was still affected. The gunman, whose body was on fire, fell to the ground and rolled over in pain. After hearing the gunshot, the strong man's accomplice immediately rushed towards Zatanna. Zatanna took advantage of the chaos to escape, but a tall and strong guy grabbed her clothes from behind and threw her to the ground. With a bang, many of the goods on the nearby shelves were knocked down by Zatanna's body. Enduring the pain in her back, Zatanna saw the strong man unzip the chain of her backpack and took out a bunny doll from it. The strong man saw the key hanging on the bunny doll, his eyes lit up, and he directly pulled the key off the doll. No, Seeing the other party rudely snatch the key and threw the bunny doll on the ground, Zatanna shouted angrily. Burke's was something her father left her, and the key ring on it was the key to her father's workshop, which must not be snatched away by the other party. Angry Zatanna immediately grabbed the porcelain at hand and threw it at the other party. Bang! The porcelain hit the other party's head, and the other party fell to the ground with a muffled groan. She picked up the bunny doll as quickly as possible, but when she was about to pick up the key, another gunman rushed over from the side. Without bothering to pick up the key, Zatanna hid behind the merchandise shelf and tried her best to calm herself down. Ice to solid, as the opponent was walking towards her. Zatanna immediately cast the anti-verbal magic under his feet. The water stains under the gunman's feet solidified instantly, and the unlucky gunman slipped and immediately fell to the ground with a thump because of his unstable standing. On the other side, Clark and the other two saw the gunman who suddenly appeared and was attacking the girl who performed magic last night. Clark wanted to help without any hesitation. But Zu grabbed his clothes. "You can't go, Clark, you will be easily discovered by people." But, looking at Zatanna in danger, Clark said anxiously, "If we don't help, the girl may be in danger of her life." "That's none of our business." Zu had a cold expression. "Think about the last time you almost killed Mr. Jonathan because of saving someone. If it wasn't for Dad's help, your parents might have been killed by old Holly because of you." Clark felt that Zu was unreasonable. "Are you just afraid of the bad things that are about to happen, so you watch bad things happen?" He suddenly realized something was wrong. "Wait, where's Star-Lord?" Zu looked to the side and suddenly found that Star-Lord was gone. On the other side, Zatanna got rid of the gunman, but she didn't expect that the last gunman had already aimed at her from the side. "Don't move, don't talk, now, turn around." The nervous Zatanna slowly turned around and faced a man with a gun pointed at him. Just when she didn't know what to do, she suddenly saw a little fat man standing opposite them. Star-Lord, who was facing the two people with a serious expression, suddenly sang a song. "Go bravely to find your love, cheers, walk with love, baby." While singing the meaningless song, Star-Lord made awkward dancing movements. "Dance hard, huh?" While saying to the gunman, he increased the frequency of awkward dancing. "What the hell are you doing?" The gunman looked at him in confusion. "Come and dance, just you and me." Star-Lord twisted his hips and kicked forward. The gunman was stunned by Star-Lord's awkward dance and even forgot about Zatanna next to him. Zatanna was also stunned for a moment, feeling that her eyes were greatly polluted. This was even more terrifying than the great existence in the darkness that her father talked about. "What the hell are you doing?" The gunman felt insulted and pointed the gun at Star-Lord angrily. "Of course I'm disturbing you, you big idiot." Star-Lord danced and said to Zatanna, "Now, do it." Hearing Star-Lord's words, the gunman looked at Zatanna next to him in horror. What greeted him was a huge electric kettle. With a bang, Zatanna picked up the metal kettle next to her and smashed it hard on the other party's head. Bang! The confused gunman fell directly to the ground and fainted. "Very good, the plan went well." Star-Lord waved his fist excitedly. Zatanna blinked her eyes, still a little unresponsive. "Is this the end?" She looked at Star-Lord with a weird look. This guy danced so awkwardly that people were embarrassed to death. On the other side, Clark was also stunned. And Zu took the opportunity to pick up the golden key on the ground. The third chapter may be a little late, you can read it tomorrow morning. Sorry, it was rejected by the operation after I finished writing it. If you are not satisfied, I have to revise it again. It's hard. Thank you all for your subscription and voting, thank you. Chapter 121 Anyone who provokes war is guilty. Padwick Farm. Peter sat on the sofa, frowning at Star-Lord who stood in front of him uncomfortably. Next to him stood Zatanna who was a little confused. She could never have thought that Star-Lord would be the child of the mysterious man who saved her last night. And looking at the appearance and temperament of the two, they are quite different, right? Could it be that the two have no blood relationship? Zatanna fell into wild thoughts. You said, you knocked down a gangster by dancing? Star-Lord? Peter frowned and asked. No, Dad, actually, it was Zatanna who knocked him down. I just danced to attract his attention, Star-Lord said with a sincere expression. I didn't expose my ability. Peter fell into silence. He knew that Star-Lord of the Guardians of the Galaxy in his previous life had danced to death Ronan. But he didn't expect that in this world, Star-Lord would still kill a gunman by dancing. But Ronan, who you killed in your previous life, was a big shot, and now you are directly using a special move on a soldier. Isn't this a complete waste? At least in this world, the first sight kill should be left to a boss of the same level as Ronan, right? Shaking his head, he threw out the strange thoughts in his mind and said to Star-Lord, "This is too dangerous, Star-Lord. What if he is not intimidated by you and shoots you?" "I know, Dad, I won't do it next time." Star-Lord secretly glanced at Peter, and after confirming that he was not angry, he breathed a long sigh of relief. He knew that as long as Peter's brows did not frown, it meant that his father was not very angry. "Yes, just need to be careful next time," Peter said vaguely. He felt that he could not discourage this kid's enthusiasm. Who knows if his next dance will help him kill Darkseid, who may meet in the future. With a light cough, he looked at Zatanna. "So, Zatanna, do you know why the gunman attacked you?" "I don't know," Zatanna said in a mess. From yesterday's tentacle incident to today's supermarket gunman attack, she always felt that she was being targeted by a dangerous force. "Maybe they're after that key," she said with some annoyance. "That key is the key to my father's workshop. I have kept it, but I didn't expect to lose it when fighting with those people in the supermarket today." She was anxious when she thought that if the group of people found the key, her father's workshop might be destroyed. "I have to go home," she looked up and said to Peter. "Thank you, Mr. Padrick. I have to go back, in case the group of people find the key." "You mean this key?" Before the other party finished speaking, Peter took out a golden key. Seeing the key in Peter's hand, Zatanna was stunned. "Yes, Mr. Padrick, this is the key." As if seeing the doubts in the other party's heart, Peter took the initiative to explain to her, "This is what John picked up in the supermarket. He handed the key to the other party. Since it was left by your father, I think it must be very important to you." Zatanna took the key from Peter in a daze. Holding the lost and found key in her hand, she suddenly felt unreal. "Thank you, sir." Zatanna felt a warm current in her heart and thanked Peter again. "Your father is Guan John Zadara, right?" Peter said to her, "A famous magician." "Yes, sir." Facing Peter, she gradually let down her guard. "My father is missing, and I have been looking for him. This is also the reason why I wander as a stage magician, but..." A trace of lust flashed in her eyes as she said, "My talent has never been as strong as my father's. I have been moving forward in his footsteps, but I can feel that I am always far away from him." Peter listened to the other party's words, but he didn't expect that this was a girl who was desperately looking for where is Dad, and from the other party's tone, it seems that she doesn't know how to use real magic power now. "One day you will catch up with your father," Peter said to the other party. "It's very dangerous outside now. Those unknown forces are chasing you. For your safety, I suggest that you stay here for a while. Star-Lord, this naughty kid, has been pestering him to teach him magic. Now that a real magician has come, it can relieve him of a lot of burden." Star-Lord, who was standing next to him, was immediately filled with surprise when he heard that Peter wanted Zatanna to stay. "Doesn't that mean that she can learn magic every day?" Zatanna hesitated for a moment, but finally agreed with Peter. "Thank you, sir. I hope this won't cause you any trouble, sir. Are you an alien?" After dinner, Zatanna saw Peter preparing to go upstairs, and asked him expectantly and nervously. "Alien?" Peter stopped and turned to look at him. "Why do you ask that? I think only aliens can have such incredible abilities as yours." Zatanna thought for a moment and said, "If you are really an alien, can you help me find my father?" "Sorry, Zatanna, I can't help you. As an alien, I don't have any telepathic abilities except kidnapping people from Earth and fighting a little bit." Zatanna soon realized that Peter was joking with her. "Okay, Mr. Padrick, are you going to kidnap me?" Zatanna pretended to talk to Peter as if nothing had happened. "It's possible." Peter shrugged his shoulders. After all, a girl who can do magic is always full of magic. Glancing at the clock on the wall, he said to Zatanna, "It's getting late, go to bed early, good night." Watching Peter's back as he left, Zatanna exhaled and looked out the window at the night. Although the other person had a secret, it didn't seem to make her feel insecure. After going upstairs and entering the room that Peter had arranged for her, Zatanna sat on the bed and took out a bunny doll from her backpack. "Well, Burks, we had an incredible day today." She touched the ears of the bunny doll and looked around the room. The room exuded a pleasant smell of grass and trees, which should be the smell coming from the plants outside. There was a crystal ball on the table, exactly the same as the one she saw in the supermarket today. Looking down at the magic castle in the crystal ball, she suddenly felt like she had returned to the past. Shaking her head, she threw this idea out of her mind and put Burks on the table. I have to keep practicing irony. Next time I face those people, I have to be able to protect myself. Zatanna picked up the crystal ball on the table and closed her eyes. Holding the crystal ball, she took a deep breath as she felt the image of the magic castle covered with snowflakes. Dad said that the secret of magic is not to say the word dryly, but to feel it in your heart. Snowing, as she said the irony, the crystal ball shone with a warm light that illuminated her face. She could feel the true emotion contained in this word. Opening her eyes, Zatanna looked at the snowflakes floating on the ceiling in shock. I really did it. I can call the wind and snow. She stretched out her hand excitedly and touched the falling snowflakes. This was the first time she created magic on her own without her father's instruction. A gust of wind blew, and the snowflakes were blown out of the door. On the other side, Peter was sorting out the information Chandler sent him in his room, and suddenly felt a chill. He walked to the window and found that a few snowflakes had floated on the window. It's snowing. Shocked, he pushed open the window and looked outside. It's snowing in the middle of summer? Looking in the direction where the snowflakes were coming from, he found that they were coming from Zatanna's room. Well, now there's an extra air conditioner in the house. The next day, early in the morning. At breakfast, Zatanna sat at the dining table, feeling the strange atmosphere of the family. She always felt that the feelings between these three naughty children were a little subtle. As a parent, Peter seemed to have great authority. He could often suppress Zoo and Star-Lord who were about to quarrel with just a glare. What's wrong, Zoo? Don't you have a good appetite? Seeing that Zoo didn't seem to eat much, Peter asked him. Zoo suddenly frowned. He wanted to say that his father's cooking made him lose his appetite, but he didn't dare to say it, so he had to hold his face and said, No, Dad. Star-Lord suddenly said seriously, I think Zoo may be sick. What's wrong? Peter didn't know what this naughty child was up to. I saw on TV today, depression, manic depression, bipolar disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, anxiety, oppositional defiant disorder, borderline personality disorder. These descriptions are very similar to Zoo. Peter looked at this naughty child who took the initiative to provoke a war and narrowed his eyes. What is oppositional defiant disorder? It is the manifestation of a person's inability to get along harmoniously with authority, unwilling to be told what to do, angry, resentful, argumentative, usually in some kind of trouble, and often doing things that go against orders, just because it is their nature. Before Star-Lord finished speaking, Zoo's eyes looked at him. Zatanna, who was eating next to him, even had an illusion. Zoo's eyes were converging into a strong and concentrated laser beam to examine Star-Lord, as if to tear him into pieces and then examine the wreckage. Zoo puffed up his cheeks and took a deep breath. Dad, I don't have oppositional defiant disorder. I'm a good kid, and it's not my fault that I'm surrounded by idiots and fools half the time. I just do things my own way. That's what an independent man should do, right? Clark next to him scratched his head. Did the fool refer to me? Peter, you too, get out. Chapter 122, Bloody Incident Caused by Asking for Directions. Star-Lord and Zoo, who were kicked out by Peter, stood outside the house, staring at each other unconvinced. Although Zoo felt that arguing with a little brat would damage his image in front of his father. But now he was kicked out by his father because of this guy. If he didn't teach him a lesson, he felt that he would have insomnia at night. Star-Lord, I will find a way to punish you and break you like a stick. Star-Lord turned his head and snorted, unwilling to be outdone, saying, I will also find a chance to punish you. You will never succeed, Star-Lord. You will always be on the side of the weak with strong fighting spirit. Even the weak with strong fighting spirit will always win in the end. Star-Lord fought back. Zoo stared at him, his mouth twisted with disdain. That's something that only happens in movies. He took a step forward and continued, the weak will always take advantage of the situation in the final game, and the victim that the murderer wants to kill will always succeed in getting out alive. But this is not a movie, this is reality. In real life, powerful monsters will get the final fruits of victory. Looking at Star-Lord with a puffed-up face, Zoo became more and more excited. And I am the monster in your heart. I am Star-Lord, the commander of the White Wolf, the man who will conquer the galaxy in the future, and I will not be afraid of any monsters. Star-Lord finally couldn't stand it anymore and began to fight back with a firm tone. You won't conquer the galaxy. You can't even conquer this farm, this town. Zoo folded his hands in front of his chest. His expression became more and more arrogant and said, do you know where your final destination is? It's the Awachi tribe. You should go to Awachi and be an Indian. He mentioned Star-Lord's identity again. No matter what, this farm doesn't belong to you, John, Star-Lord. Zhu wanted to say something else, but when he heard Peter shout, he stopped talking to Star-Lord. After adjusting his breathing, Zhu's face, which was originally full of clouds, instantly returned to normal, and he replied to Peter, "Dad, I'll be there soon." Star-Lord was stunned for 2 seconds when he saw Zhu's magical expression. "The end of my journey is not the Awachi tribe, but the Milky Way," he muttered to himself and looked up at the sky. After breakfast, Zhu and Clark walked to school together. On the school bus, Clark greeted Lana. "Hey, Lana." As Clark spent more time with Lana, his nervousness was relieved a lot. At least he would not fall down at any time like before. "Hey, Clark, good morning," Lana greeted him and asked, "Are there any guests at Mr. Padrick's house?" Just now when the school bus passed the farm, she saw a beautiful girl appear at the farm. "Yes, a special guest." Clark didn't know how to explain Zatanna's identity, so she could only say vaguely. "She is very beautiful," Lana said a little jealously. Although she didn't understand why she felt depressed. Clark touched his nose, not knowing how to respond to Lana's words, and could only look at Zhu for help, but the other party cast his eyes out of the car window, pretending to look at the scenery. Half an hour later, frustrated Clark and Zhu got out of the car. Clark now wanted to drink a sip of orange soda, so that the chemical juice could moisten his dry tongue bed. But in the store outside the school, there was a meal vending machine, which only had one kind of expensive Mountain Dew soda. His pocket money was not enough to buy Mountain Dew soda. "Are you depressed because Lana quit the cheerleading team?" Zhu asked Clark. "No, I just think Lana is more interested in Godfather Farm than me," Clark said a little depressed. "I think there is always something between us." Zhu didn't quite understand this, and after thinking for a while, he said, "Maybe it's because you put on the ruby ring last time and acted like a jerk, so she thought you were really a jerk." Zhu's words made Clark even more depressed. He knew that no matter how he explained, Lana would not believe it. Clark was so absorbed in his thoughts that he didn't notice a car driving into the parking lot. As soon as he looked up, he met a plain-looking, skinny man in a neat black suit. At the same time, another sturdier man also walked over to them. "Good morning," the skinny man greeted Clark. "We are from the FBI." The other party took out his ID and said, "I am Agent Michael Adams, and this is Agent Frank Gallo. We want to ask you a few questions." "Okay, ask whatever you want." Clark racked his brains to think, could it be that his superpowers were leaked, so he attracted the FBI? Just like the old hoary who claimed to be a member of the FBI last time. Clark's heart beat like a frightened antelope. He could even hear the blood rushing through his veins, and the pulse in his neck beating like a drum. Is the other party here to arrest him? I wonder how many cigarettes I am worth in prison? Would he get along well with the disheveled prisoners in the cell wearing orange jumpsuits? Clark was just thinking about it when Zhu came up to him. "What's up?" he asked the two agents. The two agents looked him up and down. "We're looking for someone," the tall and strong man said, showing a photo. Clark's throat tightened immediately. Although he was glad that the other party was not looking for him, the person in the photo was clearly Zatanna. The background was a party, red Christmas lights, unbridled laughter, long black hair and exquisite appearance. It was Zatanna without a doubt. Zhu also saw the photo. "Do you know this person?" the man holding the photo asked Clark. "No, I don't know," Clark said nervously. But his guilty behavior soon aroused the other party's suspicion. "Really? Yes, sir, I have never seen her." Clark felt a little annoyed. His behavior just now must have been suspected by the other party. "Are you really from the FBI?" Zhu asked, staring at the two suspiciously. "Any questions?" The two men looked at Zhu, not knowing what he meant. Zhu spread his hands indifferently. "Oh, I'm just curious, nothing." "Have you seen her?" Zhu shook his head. "Well, no, I've seen a lot of people, but not this guy." The tall and strong man held the photo upright so that Clark next to him could see it clearly. "What about you, kid? Have you really never seen this person?" Seeing the other party's aggressive tone, Zhu looked annoyed and asked in a rough voice, "Excuse me, who are you? Can I see your ID?" The tall and strong man rolled his eyes, and the other man said nothing and showed his ID. Although the tall and strong man who rolled his eyes was angry, he also followed suit and took out his ID. Zhu nodded. "I'm sorry, I haven't seen this person." "Sorry, gentlemen." The tall and strong man raised his face proudly, cracking his knuckles, stepped forward and said threateningly, "Look again. Think about it carefully, Frank." The thin man stretched out his hand and pressed it on the man's chest. "Let's not disturb these two children, they don't know anything, thank you." After thanking them, the two turned and walked towards a black short-sword Sierra sedan parked not far from the school gate. Staring at the backs of the two, Azu's eyes narrowed. "Who are they?" Clark asked in confusion. "I don't know, but it's definitely not from the FBI. Why?" Dad said that when people lie, they will blink unconsciously, or look up or to the right, in order to mobilize the part of the brain responsible for creative thinking. Pupil contraction and eyelid trembling are all panic reactions, Azu said with a serious expression. "I can clearly perceive that most humans will have head twitches or sudden eye movements when they lie, and lying is an instinctive reaction of fear." Hearing this, Clark nodded, thinking, "Why have I never seen the characteristics that Azu just mentioned when he lied?" On the other side, the two people who left Clark and Azu were driving with sinister expressions. They must have lied. The blonde kid might be smarter. I almost fell for him, but he was a bit too obvious. But the black-haired kid, his lies can't even fool a 3-year-old child. Just as the two were complaining about Clark and Azu's clumsy lies, they suddenly saw a red light spot rushing towards them. Zula! The red laser instantly shot at the left front tire of the car from the blind spot. There was almost no obstruction. With a dull bang sound, the tire exploded directly. The thin man who was driving the car slammed on the brakes the moment the car lost control. Damn it! With a harsh brake sound, the car skidded to the side of the road. The black brake marks on the road extended with the car. Bang! Finally, the car broke through the barrier of the road and fell directly into the deep ditch beside the road. The car rolled over, making a heavy impact with the ground, and finally fell headfirst to the bottom of the ditch. After a while, a painful groan came from the car. The tall and strong man covered his forehead and raised his head with blood all over his face. He smelled a pungent smell of gasoline from the car. While unbuckling his seat belt, he looked through the car window at the top of the slope. He accidentally saw the blond boy who asked for directions before, staring at him with red eyes. The next second, bang sound. The car exploded violently, quickly engulfing his consciousness. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 123 I Can See Death, 35,000 Lives Fall Off. Azu looked at the exploding car coldly, and just as he was about to turn around and leave, he saw Clark standing not far away. The two looked at each other, as if they were back to the time when they were 6 years old, when Azu used thermal vision to drive the Luther Group's car into a deep ditch. However, compared to the last time, the two fake agents were not so lucky this time, and the car exploded and burned the two to ashes. "John, you killed them?" Clark asked in disbelief. "You killed 2 federal agents?" After the 2 people who claimed to be federal agents who asked for directions left, Clark noticed that Azu's eyes were a little wrong, so he kept an eye on the other party's movements. After Azu left the school, Clark immediately followed him. But now it seems that he is still a step too late. Azu's expression was calm. "I told you before, Clark, they are not from the FBI. That's just your guess." Clark couldn't believe that Azu could say so lightly that he killed 2 agents. "My senses are not fake. Heartbeat, blood pressure, body temperature, tone of voice. I can always detect the difference between them, so I can't be wrong. They are not police officers, but people pretending to be police officers, and they are looking for Zatanna. They are very likely in the same group as the gunman who attacked her in the supermarket." Zeus stated his reasons, took a deep breath and continued, "They are not good people, but what if you are wrong?" Clark couldn't understand Zeus' thoughts. "What if you are wrong? Even if I am wrong, I am not wrong." Zeus raised his head. "Because I think they have threatened my father's safety, so I killed them, but they haven't threatened the Godfather yet," Clark said angrily. "Everything is just your guess, and then 2 people died. Don't be so naive, Clark. There are not many good people in this world, don't you understand? After going through so much, Father, Old Holly, and Parasite, you should understand how much disaster this world will suffer because of our abilities." "You are making far-fetched arguments." Azu became impatient with Clark's stubbornness. "Clark, I swear to be Dad's spear. No matter who these guys are, as long as they may threaten Dad, I will get rid of them, even if they are real agents, know our secrets, and are a threat to the Godfather. You will kill them." "Right, I never said that," Azu shook his head. I'm not a murderer. Then why do you despise death so much? Clark felt his forehead throbbing. He resisted the impulse in his heart, calmed himself down as much as possible, and continued to ask Azu, how can you easily watch someone die in front of you? Azu looked at Clark, his lips twitching slightly. Although he was also irritated by Clark now, he still suppressed his temper. You are not qualified to say this, Clark. Don't forget that you almost pulled a plane of people down to die last time. Clark never thought that Azu would mention the previous incident again. He was stunned for a moment, exhaled, looked at Azu and explained, you know that's not the real me. My spirit at that time was controlled by another me in my body. That may be another real you, just like a drunk driving accident that killed someone. In order to get away with it, he would say that he was not sober at that time, Azu said with his hands folded in front of his chest, and took a step closer to Clark. Don't quibble, that's your true thought. Dad has treated you as his own child since childhood, and has favored you since childhood, so you want more. No. I didn't. Clark took a step back. That's your thought, maybe you don't know it yourself, but I can feel that you want more. Azu's tone became more and more impatient, and he pushed Clark. Dad said that your greatest ability is the innate ability to distinguish between good and evil, but Clark, you can't be sure that you are an upright and selfless person. I won't be like you, hurting my family just to do what I think is right. I will get rid of anyone who threatens Dad and the farm. After saying that, Zu turned and walked to the side of the road. After taking a look at the burning car at the bottom of the pit, his figure flashed and disappeared from the spot. Clark stared at Zu, who was leaving at super speed, and his clenched fist slowly loosened. He wanted to tell the Godfather about this, but suddenly became hesitant. Although he didn't think that what Zu was doing now was right, he became confused when he thought of what Zu had just said. What if Zu was right? Zu wanted to be the Godfather's spear, and from his point of view, there didn't seem to be anything wrong. He let out a breath of annoyance. Padrick Farm. Peter didn't know that Zu had helped him get rid of two troubles. He was talking on the phone with Chandler. The other party told him about the gunmen who attacked Zatanna in the supermarket. How is it, Mr. Padrick? Zatanna waited for Peter to hang up the phone, then came up to him and asked. They are a gangster gang in Metropolis. Peter asked the confused Zatanna, do you have any conflicts with the gangsters? No. Zatanna denied it directly. I never knew this gangster, and I never dealt with gang members. She frowned and said, my father never told me this. Peter nodded and said, maybe they are just a tool that can be abandoned at any time. Is there something very important in your father's workshop? Zatanna thought about it. Dad's workshop. I always thought it was a very ordinary room. She thought about it and didn't feel anything special. But I remember a song. Zatanna recalled the lyrics. There is a door in the house. We will all enter this door eventually, but don't enter too early. What is waiting for something in the house? Loneliness, coldness, or ruthless darkness? What is waiting theirs? After the other party finished singing, Peter asked, is it over? Zatanna blinked. Yes, it's over. Waiting theirs. Isn't there any lyrics to explain what it is? No. Well, maybe the answer behind it needs you to explore. Peter didn't delve into the answer. He brought a cup of coffee to the other party. The key to the matter is that you need to use the key in your hand to open that door yourself. Open that door. Zatanna sat on the sofa, one hand resting on her chin on the table, looking at the key in front of her. I haven't been home for a long time. She remembered that when she got up in the morning, her father sang the breakfast song while making breakfast. The pan is good for beating eggs, and the pancake syrup tastes great. Every time this happened, she would complain about her father. The lyrics don't make any sense at all. After getting up and going downstairs, she would see her father putting the dolls on the table, making the dining table messy. Taking a deep breath, Zatanna pulled herself out of her memories. She imitated what her father did at the beginning, covering the coffee cup with a napkin, then grabbing a corner of the napkin with her hand and chanting aloud disappear. After chanting the spell, she lifted the napkin, and the coffee covered by it had disappeared. Snap! 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 Peter clapped his hands. Good magic, Zatanna. Zatanna looked up at Peter, who was applauding, and blushed a little. Sir, you should have figured it out a long time ago. This is not a trick, but magic. Yeah, I know, but I always thought that magic is also a kind of magic, Peter said as he walked to the table to look for it. Well, you can't hide a cup of coffee in your sleeve. Can you tell me where you hid it? Zatanna was amused by Peter. Dad said that magicians never reveal the secrets of their tricks. That's a pity. Peter stood up and said with a very regretful look. Zatanna looked at Peter and suddenly felt that Peter's image was somewhat similar to her father's at this moment. When she changed the cards, her father would also pretend to be very surprised and look around for the changed cards. Zatanna was stunned for a while, and asked Peter, Mr. Padrick, are you Superman? Superman? Peter asked her, what kind of Superman? It's super strength, super speed, supervision and so on, almost. Zatanna asked with more and more surprise. Then sir, what can your eyes see? A lot. For example, I can see death. Death, yes. For example, when I talk to someone, I can see 35,000 dead skin cells fall off and disappear. The death of life is happening all the time. Zatanna listened to Peter's words and suddenly felt depressed. That must be a bad feeling, seeing death every day. Actually, it's not bad. Peter took a sip of coffee. I would see them as burned fireworks, or dust in the starry sky. That's a bit romantic, Zatanna muttered softly. Late at night, Zatanna lay on the bed and rubbed the ears of the bunny doll. Good night, Burks. After saying good night to the bunny, she hung the key on the bunny doll. As the moonlight from outside the window shone in, the rabbit bathed in the light suddenly moved its ears, and under the moonlight, it turned into a real rabbit. Chapter 124 is about Dad, it is justice. The rabbit jumped off the bed, sniffed around on the floor for a few times, and suddenly jumped onto the window, then jumped straight down. Zatanna, who was sleeping, seemed to realize something and suddenly opened her eyes. The scene she saw was the bunny doll jumping out of the window. After rubbing her eyes and realizing that she was not dreaming, Zatanna quickly put on her coat and ran towards the window without caring about her inner surprise. Bang! Zatanna jumped from the second-floor window to the ground, and her legs immediately felt a pain. Hey, Burks, stop! Zatanna endured the pain and chased after the bunny doll, while shouting for her bunny to stop. For some reason, the resurrected bunny seemed to be avoiding something, and ran towards the wild without looking back. Soon, Zatanna was left far behind by the bunny doll. She looked down at her smooth feet that were covered with mud because she was in a hurry and didn't wear shoes, and she let out a sigh of helplessness. Okay, Burks, although I don't know why you are resurrected, I guess it's probably some magic trick of my father that turned you into a doll. I know this may make you a little angry, but we are still friends, right? She whispered as she walked forward. Finally, she saw Burks with his back to her near a bush. Zatanna walked forward carefully and hugged the rabbit into her arms. Okay, I got you. Zatanna, who was excited about catching Burks, clenched her fist. But soon she heard a voice from behind. Confused, Zatanna turned around and saw a gorgeous woman standing in front of her. The woman, wearing a white woolen windbreaker and with horns on her head, exuded a chill and a powerful aura that made people unable to look directly at her. You are the daughter of the head, right? It took me a long time to find you. The woman held a snow-white wand in her hand, with a faint smile on her lips. Realizing that the situation was not good, Zatanna immediately ran away with a rabbit in her arms. This woman who suddenly appeared with a strong aura was obviously not someone he could handle. Seeing Zatanna running away without hesitation, the woman pointed her wand at her, and said with a look of complete control on her face, "Stay." As the words fell with a hint of emphasis, Zatanna's snow-white ankles were instantly wrapped in a chill, as if she had stepped into a trap and was hung upside down in the air. Looking at Zatanna hanging in the air, the woman walked up to her with satisfaction and looked at her. It's much better now. So, do you know where your father went, child? Zatanna, who was hung upside down, felt a little dizzy and looked at the woman in front of him with shocked eyes. No, I don't know. Who are you? I am the Witch Queen. The woman said her name and reached out to take the key off the neck of the rabbit that Zatanna was holding. Now that I have this key in my hand, I can finally open the secret room full of secrets and magic. Staring at the key in front of her, she continued to speak to Zatanna. Eternal magic, secret room? Eternal magic? What is that? Zatanna heard these words for the first time and asked in surprise. It seems that your father hasn't told you about the secret room yet. The Witch Queen held the key and said to her, your father's workshop is the secret room. The secrets in it are said to date back to the beginning of time. It is the first room in history, the real first. It is full of ancient secrets. Ancient and dangerous, but since there is a room, there must be a gatekeeper to guard it, the Witch Queen said here, looking at Zatanna who was hanging, and your father is the head of the secret room. Now that I have the key, I can open the door. I have to thank you. Just as she was thinking about how to express her gratitude to Zatanna, she suddenly heard a voice behind her. You seem to have forgotten the owner of this place. the Witch Queen turned around in astonishment and saw Peter standing in front of him. Swoosh! Without waiting for her to react, Peter quickly stretched out a hand, and the energy condensed by the god body condensed into a milky white dazzling ball of light in his palm. With a swoosh, it shot towards the opponent's arm at a high speed. In order to avoid Peter's sudden attack, the Witch Queen had to retract her right hand holding the magic wand. Zatanna, who lost control of the magic, fell to the ground with a bang. Covering her painful butt, she looked at Peter, who suddenly appeared. Mr. Padrick, Zatanna was shocked and moved. Peter did not speak, his eyes fixed on the woman in front of him. No, you are not a magician, you have no magic power. The Witch Queen frowned slightly, looking at Peter with puzzled eyes. You are right, I am not a magician, so, I will not use magic to deal with you. As he said that, Peter activated his super speed and disappeared in an instant. Facing Peter's actions, the Witch Queen's eyes glowed with a dark cold light, and she immediately waved the magic wand in her hand. Almost in an instant, the violent ice wind and snow rushed towards Peter. The magic that was enough to freeze a small mountain completely soon surrounded Peter. Seeing this, the Witch Queen's mouth curved slightly. This man who exuded a mysterious flavor from head to toe should die in her hands. However, before she could be happy for a few seconds, Peter left the attack range of the magic. Ignoring the chill on his body, Peter moved in front of the Witch Queen in the blink of an eye and punched hard. The Witch Queen reacted with an ugly face, and immediately created a cold air several times stronger than the ice wind and snow just cast, surrounding herself. The white cold air, supported by a huge amount of magic energy, controlled Peter's actions and made his movements pause for a moment. Although Peter quickly broke free from the control of the magic, in a very short time, the Witch Queen's body moved backwards like the wind. The Witch Queen, who broke away, glanced at Peter, and after knowing that the man in front of her was not easy to deal with, she had the idea of retreating. Anyway, the key was already in hand. Glancing at Peter, the Witch Queen's figure instantly disappeared from the spot. Feeling the disappearance of the other party's breath, Peter frowned. After noticing Zatanna lying on the ground, he walked quickly to her side. Are you okay? I'm fine, sir. Zatanna staggered to her feet, and because her feet were too slippery, she almost fell. Peter then saw that Zatanna was not wearing shoes. Wait a moment. After saying this to her, Peter activated his super speed, and a few seconds later, he came to Zatanna with a pair of shoes. Put them on. Yes, Zatanna nodded and put on her shoes with a red face. Because the shoes Peter brought were his own, they were a little big for Zatanna. Enduring the strangeness in her feet, she stood up and thanked Peter. Thank you, sir. If it weren't for you, I might really have met with misfortune tonight. You're welcome. After saying that, Peter turned around and looked at the dark woods in the distance. The cold mist came in waves. Back to the farm. In the living room, Peter glanced at the clock on the wall. The time was already 11:30. Peter poured a glass of water for Zatanna and asked her, do you know who this Witch Queen is? No, I've never heard of her. Zatanna thought for a moment. My father rarely tells me about the magic world. I mean, these things about the magic world. Thinking of the key to her father's workshop being taken away, she became a little depressed. That woman said that my father's workshop is a secret room. I have never heard of it. I always thought it was just an ordinary room. She gently rubbed the rabbit in her arms. Her heart was in a mess. I don't know what's in my father's workshop, but she got the key. I have to stop her. Peter shook his head and said to her, you can't stop her. Her magic ability is stronger than yours, although Zatanna will be a famous magician in the future. But now she is just a fledgling girl who has not yet mastered the real magic power. I know, but I can't run away. Zatanna looked at her feet. The mud on her feet made Peter's shoes dirty, and her mood became worse. The next day, early in the morning, Azu looked at Zatanna doubtfully while she was cleaning Peter's shoes. Dad, Zatanna is helping you clean your shoes. Is that strange? Little Zatanna is a hard-working person. Peter gave Zatanna a hard-working personality. As for what happened last night, there was no need to let Zu know. Really? I thought she could make the shoes clean like new by reciting a spell, Zu said to Peter. I didn't expect that the magician had to do the cleaning work himself. Peter glanced at Zatanna, rubbed his chin and said to Zu, Zu, I heard that there was a car accident in Smallville yesterday. Hearing Peter mention the car accident, Zu's expression immediately became nervous. Don't you have anything to say to me? Peter's sharp eyes swept his whole body. The police said the cause of the car accident was a tire blowout. The outside of the car tire was subjected to heat shock, which seems to be very similar to your thermal vision. He received a call from Officer Chandler this morning. The other party told him that the two people who died were also gang members from the same gang as the previous supermarket gunman. Peter looked straight into Azu's eyes. Don't you have anything to explain to me, John? Azu pursed his lips and said nothing. According to his usual character, if Peter said such a thing, he would definitely admit his mistake without hesitation. What surprised Peter was that Azu kept his mouth shut and remained silent today. So, Peter coughed and asked him, "You don't have anything to say, John?" Azu was silent for a while before he said, "Dad, I don't think I did anything wrong." "Why? You said that you wanted me to do the just thing." "I think this is the just thing, Dad." Peter looked at him in surprise. "Justice, as long as it has something to do with Dad, it's just." Chapter 125 Evil Star-Lord. "You think this is justice, John?" Peter crossed his arms and frowned and said to him, "You are wrong about one very important thing. That is, John, I never told you to be a so-called righteous person, Dad." Zu looked up at Peter. He thought he would be beaten up by his father for saying this. "Dad just hopes that you don't become a god." Peter looked at Zu, who was a little uneasy, and said, "Do you know what the most important characteristic of God is, John?" Zu shook his head in confusion. "The most important characteristic of God is that he ignores the laws and rules of the human world, because these things cannot restrain them, so they can do whatever they want." "John, will you become a god?" Facing Peter's question, Azu shook his head and said, "No, Dad, I will not become a god." "Really?" Peter paused and continued to ask, "Then imagine a scenario like this. When you want to do justice and save mankind, but accidentally fail and hurt innocent people, people blame you. What will you think? When you are driving and someone cuts you off, and the other person gives you a finger and drives away, what will you do?" Azu thought about it and felt that this question was not easy to answer, and he didn't have a definite answer. "Let me tell you, John, when faced with the accusations of the crowd, you will feel that these flies are simply ungrateful and even want to kill them. When faced with a guy who cuts off your car, you will fly up to fix him or even kill him." Peter looked at him seriously. "And you think so because you have no constraints? You can do whatever you want. You can be a good person or a bad person. It all depends on your thoughts. You can even be a good person most of the time, and when you get bored, you can be a bad person for some fun." "No, Dad, I won't be that kind of person," Azu said firmly. "Do you think I'm talking about you?" "No, this is how ordinary people behave when they get superpowers." Peter looked at Clark, who was eavesdropping in the distance but pretending to be doing farm work. "You think you are doing the just thing, John, but it doesn't matter, because you can define justice yourself, because the definition of ordinary humans does not apply to you." Peter put his hand on Azu's shoulder and said earnestly, "Do you think Dad is angry because you killed two gangsters?" "No, Dad will not be angry about this." Peter shook his head and said, "Dad just hopes you can understand one thing, don't become a god, but become a human being." Azu nodded vigorously when he heard this. "Dad, I understand that God has no scruples to put himself above humans and use his abilities wantonly." Peter patted his shoulder with satisfaction. "Yes, John, and humans are different from God in that their abilities are only used for some kind of belief, whether this belief is law, morality, or sense of responsibility. Dad, I'm not a god, I'm a human, and I use my abilities to protect my family and to protect you." Hearing this, Azu's tone was unusually firm, his eyes sparkling. "Dad, those two fake FBI members will be bad for you." "So I did that." "Yeah, I know, so Daddy won't punish you, but next time, remember to investigate thoroughly, don't hurt innocent people, and remember not to be discovered, because that will cause unnecessary trouble." Peter rubbed Azu's hair with satisfaction. Azu nodded heavily, and was very excited because of his father's understanding. What Dad meant by investigating thoroughly should be that no fish that slipped through the net should be let go, don't be discovered, that is, killing and destroying a body should be done without leaving any traces. Azu, whose head was spinning wildly, quickly understood what Peter meant. Peter didn't know Azu's strange brain circuit at this time, and had completely misunderstood. After educating him, he breathed a sigh of relief. He was not angry that Azu, this naughty kid, killed the two gang members. After all, Azu's original intention was to protect himself. But he couldn't encourage his behavior too much, lest Azu become a bastard who did all kinds of evil. That's why he tried to shape Azu into a family hero. On the other side, Clark, who eavesdropped on the conversation between Peter and Azu, was thinking about something. Putting down the lawnmower, he stretched out his hand and looked at his palm. What the Godfather said made sense, to become a human being instead of a god. So why would he use his ability? Unable to think of an answer for the time being, he let out a breath and fell into trouble. So, it really turned into a rabbit. Star-Lord looked at the rabbit in Zatanna's arms in disbelief. From a doll to rabbit, yes, Zatanna said somewhat embarrassedly. I guess it's some kind of magic of my father. Star-Lord expressed some disbelief. The magic of your family is incredible. He coughed, looked around, and asked in a low voice, can you teach me this magic, Sister Zatanna? Seeing that the other party seemed to have ill intentions, Zatanna asked him suspiciously, why do you want to learn this kind of magic? If I tell you, can you keep it a secret? Star-Lord asked her in a low voice. Of course, swear. Seeing the serious look of the little brat in front of her, Zatanna found it a little funny. I swear to keep a secret for you. After Zatanna swore, Star-Lord came over and whispered, I want to learn this magic trick to turn John into a doll. Turn your brother into a doll. Zatanna looked at Star-Lord in shock. Do you have a deep hatred? I can't do such magic. Zatanna immediately refused without hesitation. She felt that the little fat man in front of her was much more evil than she thought. Seeing that the first magic trick could not be performed, Star-Lord proposed a second magic trick. Then do you have a magic trick that can help me lose weight? Star-Lord asked expectantly. You want to lose weight? Yes, it's best if you don't need to diet. You know, all the weight loss methods in the world mention eating less, but I can't do it without eating. It's too painful. Zatanna took a deep breath and said to the whimsical Star-Lord, sorry, I don't understand this kind of magic. She looked down at her figure and thought thankfully, fortunately, her physique is not prone to obesity, and she didn't gain weight after eating so many snacks. At noon, after lunch. After packing her luggage, Zatanna came up to say goodbye to Peter reluctantly. Mr. Padrick, I think I have to say goodbye to you. Are you leaving? Peter asked in surprise. Yes, the Witch Queen stole my father's key, and I have to go back. Well, Peter nodded. I'll take you back. If he asked Zatanna to go back directly, he was afraid that the other party would slide and then be arrested on the spot by the Witch Queen. Hearing that Peter was going to take her back, Zatanna's eyes flashed with surprise. She didn't have much hope at first. But when she heard that Peter was going to take her there, her depressed mood immediately improved. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. In the evening, Peter drove Zatanna home. Looking at a villa standing in the night, Peter pushed open the car door and got out. Is this your home? Yeah, I haven't been here for a long time. Zatanna got out of the car holding the rabbit and walked towards the room nervously. Peter stared at the villa in front of him and became interested in the legendary secret house. The first house in the world, endless secrets. He was very curious to see what was inside. After following Zatanna into the room that had been uninhabited for a long time, Peter looked around. Zatanna, who was walking in front, went straight to her father's room. The room was locked, so she took a hairpin from her head, twisted the wire on it, and reached in. She learned the lock-picking technique from her father when she was 8 years old. With a creak, Zatanna successfully opened the door with the lock-picking technique. Standing in front of the door, she took a deep breath and pushed the door forward with a nervous mood. She had never been to her father's workshop before. She took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The messy books and magic props in the room came into her eyes. Walking to the desk, Zatanna looked at a poster on it. The poster showed a photo of her father and mother. The two of them were dressed as magicians and smiled at the camera. Mom is really beautiful, Burks. She looked at the poster and said to herself to the rabbit in her arms, the problem is, I don't remember her like this. I only remember her when she was sick. She once gave me a crystal snow globe with a winter castle in it. Staring at the portrait on the poster, Zatanna fell into childhood memories. I used to pretend that my mother lived in a castle and pretended that she had never died. She lowered her head and touched the rabbit in her arms. I'm so stupid. After complaining about her childhood self, Zatanna picked up the top hat next to her. It's strange that Dad never forgets this top hat when he goes to perform. Putting the top hat on her head, Zatanna wiped away the tears that appeared in the corners of her eyes. Just as she was about to take off her hat, she suddenly found a few letters on the main table. Surprised, she picked up the letter and read the contents. My dearest, thank you for telling me about my daughter's recent situation. I miss her very much. But I know that you have done your best without me. Being a single father is difficult, especially taking care of teenage girls, but I really think you have done a great job. Reading the contents of the letter, Zatanna was stunned. This is a letter from her mother. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.